Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing this New Year's? First day of the New Year's, guys, so hope everyone is having a good day. Maybe we will get some people in here. We will find out. Hope the weather is going well for everyone and it's nice. Hey, how's it going, Mike? Yeah, I got a feeling not many's going to show tonight, Mike. I mean, hey, Martin Jones, how's it going? Well, I've got two, so that's two more than I thought, anyways. So. Do you got the laser the rest of the way hooked up, Mike? I seen where you built the stand and all that. That stand was pretty cool. Where you had the coasters where you just press down on them and. I thought that was kind of creative to do that with them coasters. What time next week, Mike, do you think you'll have the laser up and running? I do have another question for you, Mike. Why did you decide to change the... I understand the ventilation. Not yet. Cutting some acrylic to go in the window above the AC for the ventilation. I understand why you did the ventilation pipe on it. Why did you decide to change the air compressor on it, the air assist? With the AC in the window, do you have much room to even see out of it, Mike, or is it about? Is there like an advantage really just to have that little bit extra, or is it going to be blocking where it's not really going to matter? What's up, Texas Finest? How's it going, Frankie? My New Year's, we started out with storms, and we had another touchdown in a tornado. No one was injured though, but properties was damaged. So, little built-in air pump was crap, and have a compressor that's has a good regulator. I wanted more control over the air pressure. Yeah, that's good. You know, you're not like. I know you know, Mike, from running, but the pressure that's in there, they don't really go too high because it presses against the lens. So it's just because that's like a lot of people I know they will run, they'll use their house compressor for them. But the output that I found with them other ones, they tended to be enough. Yeah, I went from 65 to 45 degrees. In an hour and a half here, supposed to get down to 19 tonight. Yeah, that's we're supposed to get chance of snow here today or tonight. Yeah, that 15 to 35 is about right. Because I was gonna say, I know some people like they just think the bigger air compressor is better on them things, and really, it's low psi on them. They're not too high psi on them. So I was gonna say my little one that I had like that, it was bigger than the one you had in there, but it wasn't much bigger. I always just left that in. Lower in acrylic, more on acrylic, more on the wood. Yeah, because I was gonna say wood's the thing you got to worry about. If it flashes up, if you're not blowing air on it, you can kind of chance to get a little fire in them. Also, more when cutting versus engraving. Yeah, so I was gonna say the cutting's the big thing. If you're not careful, that's when you normally have the fires. The engraving, even on wood, I mean, they make a lot of smoke, so your ventilation's the important thing. But the cutting is where usually people end up catching them on fire and ruin their laser. So do you got some projects lined out for it, Mike, when you get it up and running, or is it something you just got it because you know all the other work that you had from the laser before? Yeah, loving the new cart so far. 65 for built-in. 65 built it. Yeah, I was gonna say I watched your one part of the video. That was kind of pretty cool, Mike, how you made that. Because a lot of people when they put coasters, they don't do a lever where. Now the only thing that I could see is depending on how that, which I'm sure your shop floor is fine, but I've been in some shops that's got kind of unlevel floors. So when you would drop it down the other way, they would kind of teeter-totter if it wasn't, the concrete wasn't level. But even when you were pushing on it, it looked pretty stable. Oh, you went 20 over the budget, Mike. I can't make one of them, then it's not worth it. So how's everyone else doing on there? I see we've got some viewers. So how's all the other viewers doing? 60 for the wood and hinges, 20 for the casters. Now, could you use the casters that it had on there, Mike, the old ones, and just swapped them out? Which, I mean, 20 is not that bad for the 80 for that whole cart's not bad anyways. Hey, Donna Wall, how's it going? Happy New Year's. The old casters were a different mounting style and not the best either. I was going to say, yeah, they normally, the bad thing they cheap out on is the air pumps. Like the stuff that's not really that, I wouldn't say that important, but like the air pump, the casters, even the fish pump where you're using to pump the coolant through it, I found, or the water, I found you're better off to get another one. The one that I had was just, I mean, it worked, but it wasn't the best. It was kind of small for the size. I went with the next size pond pump with the one that I used to run. The other feature that was kind of nice on that mic is I didn't know that, but where it had the razor slats on that also, and the cutting table, because usually you only get one or the other. You don't get them both. The old casters were a different mounting style. Not the best either. Yeah, the pumps is actually decent. Problem is finding the inline style pump, not a submerged pump. Yeah, the pump that it has is a submerged pump, ain't it, Mike? Or at least the one that I got with my kit was back in the day. It just had a submerged pump. Yeah, or FSL lasers have both knives and honeycombs. Oh, so your old one was an FS. Yeah. Yeah, they were they were one of the first companies actually in the US that was importing the China ones and doing a lot. Yeah, they did a release a few days back about how much it costs on their importing fees and all that. Like they said, I think the containers were 18,000 originally, and now they're saying they're 40,000 to get the containers over here for their lasers, and they're only able to fit. $10K for that one where we got it. Is that from FSL, Mike? Is that what you're talking about? The FSL laser was that much? Or are you talking about the Omnitech one? Yeah, but the other thing too, Mike, because I remember like when I remember looking at them when they started doing sales. At one time, yeah, it's about 6 or 7 years ago too. It's kind of crazy. But at one time, they were one of, like I said, one of the bigger ones out there before you had all these other ones. And you did have like eBay, but it was always sketchy to order like the lasers and all that from there. And so a lot of people were going with, because they had all the nice thing, FSL had all the other stuff in stock. So literally, like what I did, even that first Chinese laser I had, I ended up ordering lenses from FSL just because they were there and had them in stock instead of worrying about the Chinese shipping. But yeah, they were one of the earlier ones, and then they had their was it Light Object was their program they created for it, or one of their other lasers, anyways, where they went through and did a lot of other stuff. So you doing more DTF printing later? Yeah, Donald. I just seen that message. Sorry, Donald. Yeah, I plan on doing a little bit more probably tonight. Depending on how the weather is, because that printer's over at the other shop. I don't have it here, so I'm kind of limited on what I can do here. Which means if you change focal length, you need to adjust it. One more thing I'd like to get, laser combiner. Right now the laser pointer mounts to the head. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say most of them they just have that cheap little kind of LED. Well, it's not LED, but the cheap little laser that bolts onto the head right there. And so what happens, like you said, when you change like the lenses for if you went to like the 1.5 millimeter to the 3 millimeter lens height, like for better cutting, then that laser's out, so you got to readjust it. The combiners aren't bad. I mean, you're going to be in it. Well, it used to be anyways, about $100 to do the combiner, but you've got to make sure you got room in the back to put that, because a lot of times, well, depends on how they are. I know back in the day, some of them they didn't have much room. Like when I upgraded to, I want to say the 80 or 100 watt tube, there was no room whatsoever back there, and like I didn't have that cover, like where you can get that cover now on some of them where they put the tube sticking out. I didn't have that, so literally we had a hole cut in the side of one of ours. Hey, Rob Swade, how's it going? I like your lighting. Well, thanks, Rob. Yeah, CFSL asking 1,000 for their friction rotator. You can get anywhere else for like 300. Yeah, FSL's gone up kind of through the roof anymore on price. Like I said, they were back in the day. They were the ones to kind of look at. They were still pricey back then, but they were kind of good at what. I mean, you're getting a good quality and somewhat good support because they would always answer. Now you're paying that premium for their stuff, and there's so many other companies in the U.S. that have the Chinese lasers. Cheaper for combiners now, but yeah, the space, yeah. That, and like I said, I haven't looked at any of the new ones lately, Mike, because that's like back the last one I bought my Chinese laser, all that stuff like where your air assist was inside, all that stuff was outside. And then like where your exhaust fan went through that housing and through, mine literally just had a plate mounted right to the side. It was almost like a single layer. So they didn't have all that stuff where you, like I can unbolt it and put it on. It was just sticking out. It was all done kind of the crude style. I mean, that one's 15 years old though, I think I've got. So it was one of the earlier styles of kind of the lasers. And then the other issue I had with mine, the Chinese one, was the plugs on the back. Like technically you can plug the water pump and all that in where they've got them Chinese style plugs. I went through two of them plugs and actually melted the inside fuse where it was kind of like they didn't have the right amperage on them. And then the other issue I ran into, oh wow, that's not bad at all for that combiner, Mike. Yeah, back in the day they were a little bit more. So what are you working on, Rob? I have a 60-watt Chinese laser and want to know what you think about lightobject.com's quality. Mike just actually sent me a thing from Light Object, their combiner. What it comes down to is like, well, Mike just said too, pretty decent. They just handle importing and stock here. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Any Chinese laser you run into nowadays, even like a good example, like Mike went with the Omnitech. I showed Mike the messages through Messenger, how many times I've messaged them to get as I say, Light Object's got some pretty cool parts. But like the Omnitech, they normally a lot of people said they've had good luck. I messaged them looking at some fiber lasers, and I went literally on their message after message and never got replies back, or he'd be like, hey, I'll have a tech call you. No one ever called me. They finally did call, but it was almost like a month and a half after. So it kind of was not the best service that I got. But the thing I will say too, with like Chinese lasers, they all function pretty much the same. So a lot of people, it does come down to like, if you want the customer support, some of them too, they'll go through and check them out compared to, yeah, they've been slammed apparently, not keeping up well. Yeah, like Mike said, that's the biggest thing with like that I ran into with the Omnitech. But they are one of the better ones in the U.S. as far as the import one. Because the other thing too, back when I got mine, like I mean, it's almost 15 years ago. The big issue that I ran into was like even like then, like where you have the convex lens on the for your focal lens, so you coin up and it shoots it down. Literally, mine came in with the lens upside down. Now, and like literally, I didn't think nothing about it. I ran it forever. And I noticed it would never focus smaller than whatever way. I mean, it was cutting and it was engraving, but I couldn't get it super fine. And literally, I watched someone had a video back then. I was like, what's the correct way to have this? took that lens out and it was upside down. And like I said, it still cut. It didn't cut perfect, like 100%, but it did cut. So what I did is flipped it around, and it was, of course, night and day difference. But it was just one of them things too, is like the things coming from China. When replacing my tube, should I get one with the red dot? Your red dot is a combinder, Donald, and that's what Mike just sent me. Light Object has them. And the big thing with the red dot, there's two choices. One, literally, it will connect on your focal cone. And that's the one that a lot of them have, kind of like Mike's has and what mine had. It's a LED, but it focuses right there. So it's on the cone, and it's kind of bolted like this. So what happens when you change the focal length, like let's say you put a different lens in, it's got a pivot on there, so you got to readjust the pivot so that it points straight where it needs to. So if you're changing heights a lot, that can be a little annoying. The combiners are a lot nicer, but you've got to set all that up also. It doesn't usually. If a laser comes with a combiner, then you're good to go. If they don't, just by changing your laser tube, a lot of them doesn't have, because the combiner goes in the other feature. It shoots the light through it in a different direction. Waldo, the one he was referring to, I believe, is mounted on the rim of the laser tube itself. Okay, yes, I didn't ever seen that one, Mike. Yeah, Donald, something like that would mount it on the rim of the laser tube itself. Yeah, something like that, Donald, would definitely be better. Because like Mike will tell you too, and because he's had lasers before, the biggest thing is, like I said, on the ones that are on the front, you've got to adjust it if you change lenses or your focal length. Like, so let's say you put something thick in there and then you've got to bring it down because you're changing it. You can't use that laser dot as the reference, because it's gonna, if you moved it up, now it's shooting the laser over here, even though the beam's right here. So the downside about the ones that are mounted up on the tube itself, or on the, not on the tube, but on the cone, is that unless you're doing the same thickness, it's going to move that focal point. Now, it will give you a reference. It will get you in the right area. But you are better to have the combinder, or if they have it on the tube now, to go that route, because it's night and day. It's nice to know that it's coming through the tube. And then there are some of them, like on my Universal, it's off like maybe a 16th. So it's not. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool, Mike. Is that price? CO2 laser. Wow, that's not bad at all then. So is that, man, that's, so what's a 100-watt tube going for then, Mike? Because that's not bad at all. It's been a while since I've bought any tubes, because like I said, I haven't really messed with mine anymore. The one. Now, how was that SPT? Because see, I use that Reci company one, or RECI. So you're only technically, for that combiner feature, yeah, you're only paying $50 more for that combiner then. That's not bad at all then. That's actually pretty nice. Now here's the big thing though, Mike. Did you look at that tube? It's out of stock. The one with the combinder. So the combinder one's out of stock right now. Yeah, I was gonna say I used to go with the Reese style. They've all they seem to hold up a little bit better for me. Seemed like I got more life out of them. But like I said, when I did that, there was like two kinds, and it's not like now where there's a lot more stuff for the combiners. It's normally about. Hey, Jesse Gibson, how's it going? But now, can you you can't get that combinder that one has it. It's only for that one brand, right, Mike? That was mounted to the end of it. Because I was gonna say most of the combiners are like the one you showed me earlier. Where would you recommend buying a tube from? I used to get them, like I said, I want to say it was Light Object or the other. It's in California. And then I used to check on. There was a company on eBay that had a store also. But then back when I used to have to buy the tubes, there wasn't many choices. I mean, you only had one or two places to get it. I would probably go with the Reese W2 90 watt for $565. So there's your answer, Donald. He's saying he would go with the Reese W2 for the 90 watt for $565. I want to go at least 100 watt with my current tube. My current tube failure, which means I have to change the power supply also. Is that correct? Yeah. If you the 90 watt to 100 watt, you could get away with that using the same power supply. But yeah, if you, for instance, like if you had a 500 watt and you went to 1,000 watt, or if you had a 50 watt and you went up to 100 watt, you're going to have to change your power supply. And then Mike said, yeah, 100 watt is just so dang long. That's why I'm, yeah, it seemed like the one tube that I got too, what they did to fix the length issue, Mike, they went with more roundness on them. But then, literally, the one I had to change the whole mounting fixtures and all that. I couldn't use that standard ones that they came with it. That red one, I'll try to do a video. It's the one that I've used to cut the records and all that on. Mine was advertised as 60, but it measures 50. Light Objects 100 watt power supply is like 225. And yeah, see what happened with mine. I ended up upgrading. I went to, I think, an 80 watt. My tube is 55 millimeters, whereas the 91 and 100 watt are 80 millimeters. So new mounts, etc. Yeah. And see, that's what I ended up having to do. I ended up having to go bigger mounts, notching the end out to get the tube in, even though the tube was bigger diameter, and changing the power supply. And then on that, my power supply that I ended up putting in didn't directly mount in there either. So I had to literally drill and tap. I mean, I got it all to work, but it was thrown together. And then the bracket to hold the laser tube, because even when I put the mounts on, on mine, it had that closure in the back, it wouldn't fit whatsoever. So I had to literally build a tab to support my tube and stick my tube out behind it further just to get it all in there. It's thrown together. I mean, I'll try to send some photos. And then on that one, the fill nipple actually cracked with the coolant nipple. So it didn't leak out into the gas because that's in a separate part of it. So literally I epoxied the nipple back on in on the glass just so the water could flow through. But that one, because literally I bought that tube and that happened because my other tube, literally it got so hot that it desoldered that I guess it would be desoldered. It delaminated that front lens off of it, and so that it was no longer any good. Yeah, I figure it would be about 1,000 at least. Yeah, that's like Mike said, that's about right. That's the downside about it. Like when you want to upgrade on some of them, when people are looking at lasers, if you know you're going to want to go bigger up front, because then the next time, like when the tube does go out, because all the tubes will leak, the gas leaks out over time. But the biggest thing is when you have to replace the tube, then you're just replacing the tube. One second, Mike. There you go, Mike. And then I lost where I have my windows now. There it is. Okay, Mike, just sent you that. But yeah, Donald, like I said, that's the major thing to me that I would say is, I mean, you've already got your laser, so it's you have no difference to go. But usually, if anyone's looking at getting a laser, kind of to keep that in consideration, because like a good example, let me bring Mike on now. Hey guys, it's Mike from NovaWorks.
What's going on?
How's it going, Mike?
Audio working?
Working good.
Okay, just making sure the mic was working.
Yeah, like the same thing, Mike, which you heard too, is that's what I was saying, is because the issue that a lot of people do, they'll get the laser, then they want to put a bigger tube, and then you got to change power supply, the tube, and you start eating up a lot of money that if you would have got it up front, then all you do is got to replace the tube when the tube goes.
Right.
Instead of, because like literally like where you guys are doing the math, he's 1,000 in now, and that's almost not half, but almost 3/4 of the laser cost right there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people, if you look at it, it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to buy a 100-watt laser, and they're like, $4,100. I don't know if I really want to, spend that, or $4,000 roughly, for a decent 100-watt. And it's like, now for me, the only reason I went with a 60 was because, as I've said before in some of the videos, is just because of my space requirements here.
Yeah.
I had a 100-watt for 7 years, so I know what I need and what'll work, and the 60 will work. It's not ideal because the life of the 60s, as many of you know, is only rated for like 2,000 hours, whereas like a RESI or an SPT 100-watt or 90 watts rated for 10,000 hours.
Yeah, like I said, they're about 10,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you'll get more life out of them, but it fits in the space that I've got now. It's more in line with the budget that I have right now. And it'll still do what I need. So I'm like, when it's time, I can get the 90-watt by increasing the diameter of the tube. Yeah, I've got to mess with the mounts and potentially relining up mirrors, but that doesn't take more space. It's just more time, right?
Yeah.
And then the reality is that the extension that I'll need to add on the box is only going to be between 6 and 8 inches. So it's really manageable versus if I get 100-watt from them directly, it's like 17 inches of extension.
Yeah, because they built an enclosed unit. Because see, there was a company back in the day that had an attachment, which you can make it out of Lexan or acrylic or even metal, that bolted onto the end.
So yeah. And that's exactly what we had on the FS laser. And if you look at the Omtex, they have the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, mine, the body, the 2028 is the same if you get the 60, 80, or 100-watt. So it has that side panel ready to unscrew and add that piece on. So either A, I can buy that piece, or B, I'll just probably, like you said, just build my own. It's not that big a deal. Matter of fact, when we had the FS laser and the first tube died, the first 100-watt tube died, and we bought the replacement was actually like 2 inches longer than the one that it came with, which is kind of interesting. So even though we had that extension on, it wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
So we just built out of ply. We just
Put
built a
plywood between
spacer.
it.
We just made a spacer out of ply, and that's what we ran for 5 years or 4 years that way. So
Bought this fully intended to upgrade later as I got more familiar with it. Bought the chiller, exhaust blower, and compressor, and have used it for years. Already still cutting good. Yeah, see, and that's what most people do, because even like you said, Mike, like most people, I mean, they always want to get like 100 watt or the max watt, but most of the stuff people work with, it's sad to say it, but they don't really need that much more laser, because like if you like, I mean, no one's cutting 2-inch thick acrylic. They don't even like, they don't have places usually to get stuff. And then like the other stuff, like the wood, you can only cut so thick anyways with the focal length, because then you're going to get like the angle cut, and then if you change the length, I mean, so a lot of it where everyone's like, I want to go this bigger one. The biggest thing I've always told people is don't run 100% on the laser though, because that kills the life of a laser tube so quick.
Yeah,
it's like my thing. I would never go above 80-85 on my
that's
max
usually
output.
And that's one of the benefits of getting a bigger tube or more powerful tube.
Yeah,
is that you can run it at reduced power, right, for most things. But the other problem you run into is a lot of the bigger lasers, and there's some good graphs. There's some good graphs online, but the bigger lasers also have I'm trying to remember now how it works. I think it's a longer focal distance.
Yeah, you also run into the startup voltage spike.
Well, yeah,
where it takes more on that. So if you're doing something where you only need 10 watts and you got a 100 watt laser, literally that, like, and if you hook it up to like a meter and all that, you can see the wave is not consistent as it would be on like a 50 watt.
Right.
So you don't get it even, like it will pulse and all that. And there's a guy online that he's an amazing laser YouTube channel. He's over in Australia, I think. And I want to say he's got a doctorate in science, like that stuff. But he actually literally shows all that stuff. And so, like, where a lot of people's like, I'm going to go bigger, but I only need to use 10% of the laser. So using like 10 watts, and usually that startup voltage doesn't even kick into there. So the laser could be on at like 5%, but it's not outputting because you needed that startup voltage to get it kicked over.
Right.
So
well, yeah. And
then it's an inconsistent cut, and everyone's like, oh, this laser's 100 watt. It should be cutting at 10%. And it's not the laser's fault. It's because you went too big a laser trying to use on the other end of the low voltage.
It's funny you bring that up, because one of the things that we ran into with the FS laser that we had was, that was, granted at the time, and I don't know if they still do it this way, but like you said, it's mostly Chinese parts, right? Chinese drive, Chinese parts. But they did make their own controller board, and they had their own software. Well, that ended up biting us in the butt. Yeah. Because about 4 years in, it was either 3 or 4 years in, I think it was 4 years in, the actual motherboard, the controller died. Not the screen, but the actual controller, right?
Yeah.
And so we contacted them. We figured out that's what it was. We thought it was a power supply issue. We swapped power supplies. We did all kinds of other crap. Come to find out, it was a control board. Well, guess what? They don't offer that control board anymore, and they don't have a factory replacement.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, even back then, because I remember looking, like they had the top of the line stuff for the U.S. Chinese import products where they did their own stuff.
Right.
And I remember though, because like to convert theirs, though, it was insane to buy their controller, but they bragged about all the features their own. They're like, hey, we've got our software on ours; it makes it better.
Right.
And it was always, but I always looked at them, I can't afford that, and I always went the other route. But I never thought about.
That's the thing that bit us, because they basically told us, we don't have a replacement. You're SOL. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you got a $10,000 paperweight. And so luckily, I had already been following some other options. And so we ended up buying a Ryuta controller with the new board, right? Or with the new display controller. And it was only like, this is, like I said, a couple of years back. So this was like, it was like $3
something and right around there for them.
So bought that, rewired everything, all the motor controllers to it and all that stuff. And boom, we were back up. And now on something that's more open standard, right? But the problem is, number one, we were used to dealing with and running our laser one way for 4 years.
And to change over,
and then everything changed. And not only that, but all our power ratings changed, everything changed. So like, stuff that we used to be able to burn at 10% with their controller. Well, if you tried to burn it at 10% with this controller, it wouldn't even output. It wouldn't even
Yeah.
start the laser.
I was gonna say that was my only complaint with the board, like the controller that everyone's using now, is like that was one of the big issues. Because see, I went from like Universal and Epilogue lasers, and then I went and bought a Chinese one. I'm like, hey, we're just gonna use it for this project, and I'm like, I'm cutting stuff at 10% on my other one, and like literally, like it was like 30% or 30 watts on the other one to even come close to touching it. And then I went to there's another
I just found that really
makes a
weird
controller board.
Yeah, it has to be just in the controller because the laser was the same laser, power supply was the same power supply. It's just the way that the controller
there's
works.
another company way back in the day because I bought both of their boards. One was it's a USB drive now, and the other one was literally this huge breadboard that they made, and it was, I want to say, $1,000 board just to but like it was for like if you had a Universal and something went wrong with the controllers, or like now where they're outdated,
right?
Where they're using Windows 95 or 98 back then. And like this guy's project or stuff was really good. So like it would work with Corel Draw, straight outputs and everything. And it would like you would literally input all the stuff. So you had to have the drivers and all that, but it would control servos. It would control sealed lasers and then the gas tube lasers. Okay. And like literally you set all the stuff up, and his stuff was really good, except it was kind of it's licensed only his stuff. So like the downside when like you had issues, you had to call him or message him. And it literally had 3 people in the shop. So it was like kind of one of them one-man shops, and it was California time. So like you weren't getting until lunchtime where I was at. And it was like nice stuff, but it was just kind of, and he wouldn't tell you anything about it. He'd be like, send you a link. He's like, here, do this. And it would fix it, but he wouldn't give you the inside stuff just so you could kind of troubleshoot it yourself.
Oh, right.
And aside, so someone, I was like, man, it sucked because his stuff wasn't bad. And at that time, there was no DIY laser stuff. I mean, it just didn't exist then. And then 2, of course, they came out with that other controller, and it works, but it's like it's literally I've ran into the same thing like you said. It's in that controller because it's weird. You can have another controller and cut at 10%, and then you swap over to that controller, and it's which I mean I guess they make it more broad. I mean, it's made in China, and I think they go a lot broader on the band of the startup voltage and everything because, and if you started on it, it's not bad. But if you convert it over, it's like a nightmare because all your settings, everything you got written down, you're starting over from scratch. Print house. And that was one of the big things. Like I thought too, Mike, because I was like, and I thought it was just me. I mean, like I said, I've got a video that's not public on here, but I did it for one of my senior projects in engineering, and I did a laser cutter to cut fabric. This was in like 2000, I think 7 or 8. So like, I mean, I've been around lasers way, way long time before that's back in the day when it was like horrible. Like you're using what I use. I was using steppers, but I mean, it was, I want to say a T-Rex controller or whatever. It was all like, nothing was ever done back then. And it was before anyone could really had lasers. Someone came to the school and that's how you did your senior project. If it was something that could be done, they would literally put you on there. And ladies like, I want to cut purses out of fabric, but I don't want scissors. So literally the only thing at that time was a laser, but it's like, and then of course too, at that time, it was like 100,000 for a laser cutter to do something like that. And they're like, can you think you can they're like, we'll get you the tubes. And it was glass tube thing and all. They're like, is it possible? And of course, learning everything. I mean, different mirrors and all that stuff. It wasn't like you had like light object to go buy from. Literally you're looking online and paying outrageous amounts for lasers and all, or mirrors and all that stuff. And
right.
It worked, but it was something that I told someone, I was like, it's crazy how far it's came on the stuff. And like back then I'd have never thought you could get a laser for $500. And like now, now you can literally get that. Well, a CO2 one anyways, you can get a little desktop CO2 for $500.
Oh yeah. Like a K40. Yeah. You're like $400 to $500. Yeah.
And it will still, I mean, it will do a lot of stuff most people need. Granted, you're limited on the 8.5 by 11 size.
Well, the funny thing is, there's a lot of people out there that are buying those. What are they called? The little 10
raspberries.
No, not the raspberry. What's the little laser pod things? They like
you can
add
the
to a
diodes.
Router and I mean they're spending $500 on that, and I'm like, you can get a K40. I mean, granted it's not as open, but I mean, it gives you more workable space. It gives you more power. It gives you more capabilities. I mean, yeah, diodes. Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Yeah, it's that diode
Diode
one. Yeah.
style. I mean, they've got their place. I had considered buying one to throw on my CNC,
Yeah.
just to have for minor jobs. But I'm like, man, it's like going to be almost $500. I'm like, I would rather put that towards something else. So
Yeah, not and like even now you've got a UV laser. Like you've got lasers that work in every spectrum of the light waves. And there is I follow this other laser guy, and it's a UV laser. It only does marking, but it will mark on plastics where a lot of other stuff won't mark on the
right.
plastics. It marks on the glass. It marks pretty much anything you can think of. It will mark on. Where a lot of different ones, like if you use a fiber laser and you try to do glass, you're just shooting right through it. It
Yeah.
literally works on because it can't penetrate anything, so it works just on that top thing. I don't know how it fractures the glass. It's kind of, but I watched a few things on it, and it's pretty interesting. As far all this stuff has came, and like I said,
He brought up a good point. I mean, that is absolutely true. I mean, you can't use like the standard light burn, and you can't, but the reality is, if you really wanted to upgrade it, you could add a Ryuta style controller for $300,
yeah,
and
then it
then
can take light burn.
and then convert that aspect of it. And then if you're going to do something with another, I mean, it's a challenge, right? But you're just trying to do something cheap.
Yeah. Well, see, that's like my stuff. I mean, back when I learned, it was light burn wasn't even out, and then like the last one I had, even that red one didn't come with light burn. It came with was RD Works.
Oh yeah. That's what this one came with.
And
Which
I've
I
used
bought,
RD Works
I bought
forever.
Lightburn.
I
Did
mean,
you?
granted, it's not as Lightburn's got a lot more features, but I like RD Works is free, and
Right.
I've learned RD Works. I mean, everything that I did, because I was mostly doing like cutting the records out. So all I'm doing is a
That's right.
cut. So literally, I throw it in Illustrator, do my vector, have my lines corrected on that, make sure it's a single pass, and then just send it right over to the other RD Works and have it literally cut. Already have my settings programmed. I had a template there with the center point. So literally just knock it out as quick as I could run them.
Yeah. See, and we had RD Works we played with when we first converted the FS laser, and we just couldn't quite make it work the way we wanted to. We weren't too thrilled with it, so we bought the Lightburn. And so this one came, I believe, with RD Works, and I haven't even plugged in the little USB thing it came with because I just was like, nah, I know Lightburn. I bought Lightburn, so it's like not going to worry about it. So
yeah, he was saying the K40 won't even use the RD Works.
No, yeah, it won't.
It's not that like I just seen them. I've never messed with them, so I don't know much like about that little K40s. I just know it's a cheap one to get your foot in the door if you wanted to mess with the laser.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I remember when the Lightburn did come out because everyone was like, "Try that." And I'm like, I was stuck with RD Works, and I'm kind of sold on the RD Work because what I do, like I used to do the photo stuff, but it takes so long to do like a big piece of granite.
Oh yeah.
The money you're not. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, it's so cool you can do that," and then you start adding it up when you do a 45-minute little 12 by 12 tile. And because it doesn't matter if all of them are using stepper motors. So unless you have like a servo motor, you're still there the same amount of time, 100 watt or 50 watt. It's still that stepper motor going back and forth. It was like 30 to 45 minutes for the tile. So you got $10 in the tile, that much time. And we were right around 85 to $100 an hour on the laser, what we calculated.
Yep.
Like when you tell someone, oh, it's going to be $100+ for that tile, they just looked at you and they're like, yeah, we're going to pass. So
yeah, well, yeah, that's where we could do a sublimated metal tile for.
Yeah, and that's what I told someone. Like, so literally, me, it's like anything that like a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to get it to craft and do this. If they don't own a business and they're just crafting, yeah, it's fine. If you actually look at numbers, like where you got to make sure you're paying yourself,
right?
Them numbers, literally, like the only way to really be productive is to go a galvo system.
Oh, right.
And
right.
But even then on a
just...
galvo, like they've got Chinese galvos with the CO2s. They're $5 to $10,000 depending what wattage you want. They are insane because they'll even do the contour where you don't have to have a rotary attachment. It's got a way to factor the radius. Like you tell it the radius and it will deform the image enough where it will do a contour so far over.
Okay.
And it's something in their software where it's calculating how the light beam's going to refract, and already works is fine for light burn. If so, refine, and engraving options was nicer and better output.
Yeah, for sure. And they've come a long way, because like the light burn that I just downloaded and been playing with here recently, like in the last week, got way more features than the one that we were using with our old FS laser. Because we had upgraded that only when we had to. So there's a lot of new features that the new one's got that are pretty cool. So,
well, see, like even on like the fiber stuff though, like because I don't do like the 3D on it, which there's a 3D fiber, but even like when we've done guns, I mean like or slides, can't say the other word, but like even on the like if we're doing deep engraving on them, literally you've got 10 to 30 hours, like depending if you're doing all three sides, if you're doing a deep engrave, I mean you're getting $1,000 for the slide, but even then it's not when you're tying something up that long, and if something messed up, you're screwed.
yeah.
It's like, I mean, I've done machining on, there's stuff you can do, really amazing stuff, but the time that it ties up to really, because on a fiber laser, the only difference is wattage doesn't matter. It's just, you can still do the same with the 20 watt or a 50 watt. It's just when you start using that, the way you're going to do more with the 50 watt quicker,
Right.
but they'll both cut through the same thickness. It's just going to take longer because your wattage isn't, it's kind of like using like an 1/8 inch drill bit or a 1/2 inch drill bit.
The Galvo fibers usually only go up to what? Like, I think the biggest is like a 12.9 inch work square.
Yeah. The 300 millimeter by 300 mil. They got a 320, I think. So that puts you in 11 or 12 inches.
Right. Yeah.
And then what happens?
We evaluated one that did, I wasn't going to say it was like up to 7.9. And at the time it was like $6,500. This was a couple years back, and we had it at the shop for a little bit because we were getting more and more requests to do some metal stuff for a couple business customers. And the problem was that we had been doing the Surmark thing, of course, but it's like, man, we got to air spray. We got to air spray Surmark. It's pricey. And then the biggest problem with that was some of our commercial customers, I mean, they're using it on outdoor equipment. It's rubbing right off.
Yeah. Like to get it to bond really good. It's a lot of people are like, oh, we can spray it on. And then, like, I've tested some of their stuff because we did the stuff for RC components, like the derby covers on the motorcycles. So we had to, like, they would do tests on it. They have a scrubber and all that. And if you didn't hit that right, that stuff would come off. Like, it would be on there good. But like if you take a steel, like Brillo pad.
Yeah, exactly.
And literally, I mean, that's what their check was. And so like literally if it came off, it didn't pass.
Right. Well, that was
so
one
we
of
had
our
the
tests.
laser dialed in.
We were engraving our own pocket knives and just putting them back in our pockets, and we carry them around for a week, and we pull them out, and it's like, you can barely see any what you engraved. It's just rubbed off with the stuff in your pocket.
Yeah.
With your change and your keys and your, it's like, okay, that's not going to be a long-term outdoor solution for a customer.
See, that's the only reason why I was big on sealed tubes, where people's always ask me about that, because sealed tubes, the startup voltage and the consistency, for some reason, I can get a sealed tube to make the Surmark bond and hold good. On a glass tube, my window is a lot smaller to get it to work good. I mean, I've done it, but the window to get that perfect where it won't come off is a lot smaller than it is with the sealed tube.
You talking like an RF style?
Yeah, metal, like the metal where they're enclosed. We're pretty much they're they call them life lasers, but they're not. They're still going to go out in 10 years. I mean, you're still burning up the gas inside, but it's just how the radio frequency is when they do that startup on it. It's something where it's more consistent with it.
Right.
And like I said, because everyone's like, we do Surmark, and I'm like, yeah, but if you do, like, if it's in a place where they're going to rub it a lot, or like washing them and all that, I've had it hold on. He said I had some jars of Surmark for 3 years.
The print house, I would definitely say stick with the jars versus the spray. The spray bottle, the value, you get screwed.
That's the other thing. Right, you spend
a fortune more if you buy their spray. So what we did was we used a small airbrush.
Yeah.
And we would just mix our own in an airbrush, and we'd spray all the stuff that we're going to burn. And man, super cost effective. It would last us forever. And we did a lot of metal work. And it worked well. But again, for outdoor customers, that there's going to be an abrasion, there's going to be rubbing constantly over it. it just wouldn't last.
Yeah, you
So
got to go fiber on that, and
yeah.
that's the thing too. It's like I said,
or I'd use the CNC and I'd actually truly engrave it.
Or like honestly, like what we used to use before the fiber was a YAG laser, because
Oh
YAG
yeah,
lasers,
yeah.
which nowadays it's funny. No one even like when I'll bring up like YAG lasers, everyone's like, "What's that?" I'm like, it was before fibers were really came to the market, and they still use them for marking on metal because it actually does mark better on stainless than it does a fiber laser.
Right, right.
It's just no one really does them anymore with it because you can do it with fiber. It's just you've got a lot more ranges with the fiber that it's in.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bottle, like what you said too, that's a perfect example because like literally when I started, we went with the cans, and then literally if you ask Surmark where they've got like that super slick one, they are both the same. Like literally, because when we ran into the doing the chrome parts, because we were doing Surmark on chrome, which is if you can do Surmark on chrome, you're doing good.
Yeah,
and that's what we were doing. We were doing on
that
chrome finished parts, and to get anything to bond into chrome where it's so slick. And that's like Surmark was like, hey, our super one does have some abrasion features that help it bite in a little bit better. But where they've got like that super, like that was the only difference though they were telling us, because we called Surmark and we're like, here's the issue, showed them all the problems and all that, sat down and got it to work. And like I said, but even then the worst thing is when you put Surmark on a chrome plate, which I don't have any in here.
Yeah.
And on outside lighting, you can't see it because light hits it and black.
Refraction, yeah.
Well,
I was gonna say, because like for us, the first like 3 or 4 years we did tumblers, that was our only option. I mean, they weren't powder coated; they were all stainless steel.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, we were buying cases of stainless steel tumblers, and we were Surmark spraying them, and then we'd burn them, and then we'd wipe off the Surmark, and then boom, okay, there you go. And they lasted because it's something that's hand washed typically anyhow. And
and they're not sitting with steel wool.
They're not rubbing it. No. So we never really had problems with that. But once and it's funny too because I probably still have a case of not the Yetis. What's the other one? Arctics. I probably still have a case of Arctics sitting in storage that's probably at least 30 of the 30 ounce. So I probably should take advantage of that and do some more Surmark on those and get them out of here.
Yeah, that was our worst thing too, because like when we started, like because we quoted doing the aluminum, like the plates were originally anodized black, and motorcycle is black and chrome are your only two colors, especially on the Harley accessory stuff. And so them ones, like we quoted them that price, and then they were like, "Hey, can you do these chrome ones?" And then literally, like, because we originally like, "Oh yeah, it would be the same price," because we like at that time didn't pay no attention to Surmark cost. Literally, we had to literally charge them almost double to triple for the cost.
Really, that much?
Yeah, it got pretty pricey just because what made it bad on them parts is the runtime.
Oh yeah.
Because with the running the CO2, literally it's as quick as you can go on that stuff. Yeah, the blue's better than the pink one.
A little better.
Blue color looks good.
A little more ambient.
But yeah, like the runtime was insane to do the Surmark because you can't go fast with Surmark. And so that was like we were running 100% to get that burn where it would bond.
Right.
But literally like our feed rate was horrible. Like we were doing almost 10-1 to get like on the aluminum compared to the chrome.
Really?
And so like every time they would send that order, I would dread if it was chrome because literally it was a break-even product. And that was us charging them more, but we couldn't go too much more just because they wouldn't have done it. And literally, I mean, it was something too, because when they came out with their derby covers, like RC Components at one time were the largest rim manufacturers in aftermarket rims in the industry. And so like we were doing all the lasering for them and all the other stuff. So it was kind of one of them things. It's like, you don't want to give away all this extra money and be like, hey, it can't be done. And they're going to find someone else.
Right.
But it was, and what they did too, it's awesome marketing point. Any motorcycle shop that had a license with them, they would customize and put their own logo on them derby covers.
Oh yeah.
And so like if you bought a Harley with their stuff, you were getting that shop's logo on them derby covers. If they bought and so I mean it was a perfect gimmick for them because they're giving them every shop custom things. We charge them a setup fee on the artwork. And one of my friends that worked there, he was a graphic designer, so he knew what we needed. Hey, see you, Donald. But yeah, it was that was like one of the biggest things I told someone. I was like, it was nice to do that work, but I learned really quick some of the stuff is like the dealing with it is not And then too, to get like that nice, that's where we ended up going with the YAG laser to get like black anode to get, because normally like on a CO2 you can get it to go look white, but to get that really bright white, CO2 can't do it as good as like the fire or the YAG was doing. Now another thing though too on the tumblers, Mike, if you're doing a lot, because Christian, he called me and asked about it, where he's got a customer that's all they're wanting is tumblers. I told him to go with a fiber laser instead of a rotary attachment, because if you're not doing the whole thing, even if you are doing the whole thing, the speed of that fiber, especially all you're doing is blasting off the paint, can be so much more quicker than.
Yeah, especially when you're doing raster type work.
Yeah.
That thing. Yeah, I mean the galvo's quick.
Yeah, because that's like I told people I don't try to like tell people, hey, don't buy this one or that, but like some of it is just not like when Juan did that video where he did that big tumblers for that with the handle on it for that company. That's like a 30-minute runtime.
Yeah, I know.
And then it's like, and like what he said too, like the rotary had the index problem, which that's part of the coating on it. On a fiber laser, that's at max a 5-minute job. And then it's right. And then you don't need the Surmark, which Surmark's not cheap, especially coating a whole thing. Yeah. I mean, because heck, a can now it's like $60 to $80 for a can if you buy the rattle can.
I haven't even priced it.
It's cheaper going the small, but it's still insane how much that stuff costs. And
here's the let's see, can I show you this? I don't know if I can do this. Can I take a picture or no?
I don't know much about any of that stuff, Mike, how to do the
I think it only lets me share a screen, which is not quite what I want to do, but screen sharing works best. No big deal.
But yeah, but Christian, that's because he called and he was like, hey, we got tumblers. That's all the people are wanting. He's like, what would you go with? And I was like, I would go with anything with the galvo. And I was like, fiber or the CO2, because they do got the CO2 one. The downside is like, you're not getting kind of like where you've got that bed width of, what is that, 40-inch wide on that one? Or is it 36-inch?
On mine?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's 20 by 28.
Okay, well, even then, on the galvo, you're limited on pretty much a 10 by 10 at best. And so I told Christian, I was like, if you can get everything in that area, you're better off speed-wise.
Yeah.
I said, but if you want to do other stuff, I said, don't go the galvo. I said, but if you're only doing tumblers, and because what his issue was, he was paying another shop.
Happy New Year.
Hey, Brad, how's it going? And then his issue is they were paying another shop to do it. Well, the shop was going up on price. And because the runs, and then too, they were doing like the Surmark stuff on them, and Surmark takes forever. And I was like, man, if they go a fiber on it, you can get that dark mark on there. It doesn't cost more because it's fiber laser. So it does it. You can set it to burn or just scuff it up. Right. And I was like, you can run them 10 times quicker and doesn't cost more to do it. I said, I would go fiber. I said, the downside, you're not going to do all the other fun stuff that people want to do. Because like fiber, you're not touching wood. It doesn't really do nothing in wood.
Right.
So you're not doing the other stuff that some people do want to get done, but.
Well, and that's always the challenge with everybody, right? I mean, the nice thing especially with the smaller fibers, nice thing is their footprint, right? I mean, they're super small. They don't take up a lot of space. They do that work real well. And of course they do metal work great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but they cost as much or more as this.
Yeah. They're the same. Like they don't have like a cheap $400 fiber laser. Your entry level fiber is going to be right around $2,000.
Yeah. If that. Seems like average seemes to be between 3 and 4, depending on the quality.
And I'm going low end. I'm going no features, buying the cheapest of cheap. So you're gonna like most of them are gonna be $3,000 to $5,000. And so that's one of the things I've told people. I was like, fiber does have a point. Like if you're doing mass production, fiber is the way to go. Because literally you set the stops up, you slide things in all day long. If you're doing crafting stuff or multiple items, go with a CO2 and then go with, I wouldn't say gantry system, but gantry gives you the wider area because you're not going to find a galvo system that can cover the rest of the area. But like I said, it's one of them things, know what your customer, knowing what your needs are, because it's kind of like a good thing. The print house, I actually sent him, which it got shipped out late to print house, but I sent him my whatchamacallit, I can't even think right now. My UV printer,
What?
The UFO one that I had where I did the videos on.
Yeah.
Just because I have no need for it, I don't do anything. So I boxed it up and sent it to the print house.
Oh, sweet.
But it's one of them things. It's like for me, if the UV that I would need, I would need something bigger, faster, and so that's not going to fit the needs that I need.
Well,
And I don't
yeah, I
really
mean,
do.
the one that I want starts
Yeah,
at around 130. So
yeah, and so it's one of them things. It's like I'm one of the people like it's just like in screen printing. If you're doing screen printing all the time, like every single day, go with an auto. It's stupid, like the number, like because you're not. I mean, it's bad to say it when people are like I want to get into it. You're never going to price match manual. You can't convince anyone manual's better. I mean, it's sad to say it, but there's reasons why. And I was like, if big companies aren't going to come to you with 10,000 short order and be like, I'm going to pay you more because you're manually printing them. It just doesn't happen.
yeah, and I don't mind waiting 5 weeks either.
Yeah, I don't mind the 5 week turnaround time, and I mean it's just,
I mean,
and then you're limited on colors because
right. Well,
the
it's
biggest
always your
manual
niche.
I've ever seen I think was an 8 or a 10, and I mean
Yeah,
it's just
it's always your niche. I mean, then that's the challenge, right? I mean, I that's one of the reasons we stopped doing a ton with our laser is that invariably it was people that wanted a friend of a friend or somebody whatever, and they wanted like one tumbler or they wanted one. I'm like, it's not worth our time. I mean, we
yeah,
can't sell it enough to make you doing 10, 20, 50, 100, sure, no problem. We've done orders like that, no problem. And one of the reasons, like I said, that I decided to buy this when I did was ours was going away. And like the week before I found out it was going away, we got an order for $700 worth of name badges.
yeah,
And those they wanted simple, they wanted them just engraved. Took like an hour and a half to do them. Other
yeah,
than my part, which is doing the magnets and cleaning them and prepping them for the customer, which took another probably 2 hours. But as far as laser time, it was like I just need like 2 or 3 more of those orders, and it pays for the lasers. So
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like that's what like when Rye was asking. Yeah, the print house has got it lucky though. Like where
yeah, because we've got the good toys at work.
yeah, he's got the amazing toys at work. Every time, like where they got that new other printer, well, it's a UV one that they just got into. It's like they get some pretty wicked stuff up there. And I mean, it's stuff that I'm like, man, like I would kill to be able to have access to some of that stuff. But that's like when Rye was asking. I told him I was like, because I told him he was asking about is it better to go with the other embroidery machine or the laser, and I'm like, if you've got work lined out with the laser, maybe. But I was like, because I was like,
But
it's
then
a thing. Like, you're not gonna make you're not just gonna. I wouldn't say come up with an idea with because people do create things with lasers.
oh yeah, there's no
But when you
question.
watch Glowforge, where they make it seem like everyone's making all this money, that's BS.
Yeah,
You're not like, hey, I created this. I'm working on all these.
that's
You've
like
got
the
to
Rotoma
have something.
videos and all the other videos. I mean, it's like there's
Yeah,
no
and
question
like
it
a
can
good
be
example,
done. But
like even like these, like can you laser blocks out? Yeah, but and like these were leftover because I made fixtures to hold cupcakes when I had my bakery, and it just we made jumbo cupcakes, so these were the plugs that fell out. And as you
all
know, I
right,
keep everything. And so literally one day I'm like, them are coaster size. Hey, happy birthday, Saver first. And like I said, so it was one of the things. That's why I had these. But in general, even to do these, I can buy them online for like 10, 15 cents. It's not saying it's not worth lasering these out because you can get more out doing it. But if you're running
right.
that laser for an hour straight, is it
I
really
was.
worth?
It's funny. I was talking to another Omtech owner that bought one a month ago, and she had the idea. She was already doing some laser work because I think she had a Glowforge, but she had this idea for an FJB Christmas ornament
Yeah.
that was done out of just 1/4 inch ply. I mean, super simple. And she was just tying a string on it and selling these ornaments for $5. I
Yeah.
mean, so she's like, you could tell she was a hobbyist, right? In 2 weeks, she paid for the laser with just those ornaments.
Yeah, well, and that's like I was saying, like these. So the nice thing is you could make the Christmas ornament shapes,
Right.
and it's not much time because like literally I'm using underlayment on these, so these aren't
Yeah,
even.
yeah, yeah.
And like the best stuff to cut, it's because it's good density. It's made for your underlayment. But like if you didn't think of an idea to do that, it's not worth just cutting a blank just to do it. Like you've got to think of idea like the air freshener thing where I've told people,
Yeah.
there's them two companies literally making an insane amount of money right now. I don't make as much because I'm just selling them just the blank. But literally, they're like, hey, we're doing custom air fresheners, buying that fabric, slamming them out. Like I've sold some online. I don't have the means. Like they're just not buying them from me. Is like that other person spent a lot of money on the marketing side.
Right.
And so, I mean, it was in there like, because originally they were doing it with the cheap little K40 laser.
Oh,
Because
wow.
that fabric cut's so simple. I mean, it takes nothing to cut it. And so
well, that was another funny thing that one of the people had posted up. I think their wife had just gotten an Omtech, and he was posting. He's the one. I guess he's probably the tech guy, right? So he was posted in the group, and he said that his wife just ran a batch of jobs. This was day before yesterday, and I can't remember what the design was, but basically they've been running this. This is a common design that they were doing on their Glowforge, and it used to take 17 minutes to run on the Glowforge, and it was like a minute and 10 seconds on the Omtech.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's like, I mean, I've always like, because I've had people ask me about Glowforge, and I was like, man, they marketed it perfect because it's a glass tube laser. That's not a sealed laser. Like if it was a true sealed laser, I could see, yeah, that's an insane. It is the same thing as a Chinese laser. They were the first to put the camera mount up top to do the reference, which is ingenious. But now you can buy that adapter for a lot of other lasers.
Light Objects built. I mean, it's built.
Yeah, Objects got it where it plugs right into the other as a standard board, though.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these other companies already got that feature that you can buy.
Yep.
And what it is Glowforge built you the profiles.
They just made it. They made it kind of stupid proof.
Yeah.
So
they made it idiot proof.
It's like it's the cricket of lasers, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the cricket. People overpay for it, but you get so many crafting people. I'm gonna get a Glowforge, and it looks all nice and white, fits on my desktop, and I'm good to go. And like, hey, it gets their foot in the door. It just kills me. I'm like, what they paid, they could have got so much better laser.
Right. But it's a matter of, well, does it have everything I need? Do I have to figure things out? I mean, that's, you got to give it to that. I mean, there's certain, like Omtech's a good example. I mean, you're not going to get.
Yeah, I mean, because you see the emails, like I was like, someone asked me, they're like, oh, you're making that up. I'm like, you can ask Mike. I sent you all the email or messengers that I've messaged them. They don't like, but I mean, they're busy, but I understand. But like, it's just, you're not going to get them to answer every 5 minutes from you like you would a Glowforge. You don't get that customer support, but it's kind of like the cricket. Like you said, it's the cricket of the machines. They've got the tech stuff built up for it to make it idiot proof so that because like not everyone wants to know the different materials, that they all don't cut the same. Just because it's 1/8" wood, if you're using hardwood cedar, they're all going to cut different. Where Glowforge factors all that in for you. So, I mean, I do think it's a good thing. Hey, Pam, how's it going?
What's up, Pam?
I do think it's a good thing. Like Glowforge, for someone that doesn't know anything about lasers, it's the easiest way to learn a laser. Because if not, like even like the software side, like if you don't understand it and then understand percentages, it can be very tricky. I mean, nowadays there's YouTube channels everywhere, but like I said, when I started, YouTube just started. Like there was no me Googling YouTube to see wattage of it was just literally you put it in there. If it cut. And then all your other lasers at that time were idiot proof, like your universals and all that.
Right.
And so they had the same thing, except it was a $20,000 laser, $30,000. So people,
and that's why we thought,
it wasn't a crafting laser.
That's why we thought we were doing great with spending 10 on an FS laser at the time.
Yeah, and that's like I was telling Ryan too, though. Like the biggest thing is like if you're only contour or cutting, you don't need servo motors. Because a stepper will do just as good, or a hybrid motor.
Right.
Like the only time you need them high speed is if you're doing raster imaging where you need it to go quick. But the other thing too is it comes down to the heads. Like a lot of these other ones, like the Tortex is it Tortex or it's T something, that one brand. They're at the shows, but that are universal. Their heads are super small.
Thunder?
Huh?
Thunder?
Well, Thunder makes it, but they're a red laser with white. Red and white as their colors.
It's not Thunder.
Yeah, Tortec. Trotec.
Trotec.
Trotec. Like they fly. There's one of the fastest ones out. But literally, when you're getting that fast, your head is like nothing on that head. It's like a mirror just hovering there.
Yeah,
because you can't move. you can't
And
move
Trotec,
mass. Yeah.
Trotec, they're proud of those Trotecs too.
Yeah. And I was
But
going to say, but you pay for that price. I mean,
right.
but the thing too, if you're rastering an image all day long, then I mean that's going to destroy any stepper motor laser out there. And
Pam got a package. What did you send Pam?
She got some transfers.
Ah, very cool. Hey, hang on one sec. I'll be right back.
Were the colors good, Pam? Hey, thanks to Print House for that. I knew I was badgering that name pretty bad on there. I'm not the best, as you know, on them names. Yeah, Ken, we got hit today also. We had the storms here. I don't know if you know. We had another tornado touchdown today. No one got killed, but there was a touchdown. It was like only like it was a very low percentage. I don't know how you like they classify the wind speeds, but literally Bowling Green got hit, and then the back neighborhood got hit. I mean, it was crazy, like because sirens been going off all day, the phone's been going off all day, the alarms, and perfect, Pam. I'm glad the colors match. Did the temperature, Pam, because I didn't put him in there. I thought I wrote on the package. It is 320 for 15 seconds, cold peel, and then another 15 at 320.
320.
Yeah, that was the easiest. Like, and honestly, you could go a little bit less on them. If you're putting them on like a polyester or something else, then 280, but I've just always, they don't bleed, so it doesn't matter. It's easier to get that little bit better. Yeah, Kentucky beat Iowa, but Michigan State lost, so kind of we didn't do too good. But yeah, that's a big thing, Mike, though, is like you can, and like you do pay for the speed, but like if all you're doing is cutting, because like where I was wanting a lot of like acrylic stuff cut, I'm like, if you're cutting, you don't need, and then even like where you were on there at one time where like it was talking about the size, where he was like, Juan was telling me to get as big as you can get. Like to me, I'm kind of like, I've had big lasers. I had a 4x8 laser I made. Unless you're doing something that you need that, because once you get it like that big, that tube has got to be attached to that gantry, because lasers on CO2, the further it gets away, it's losing energy. And so
it's funny you mention that, because I actually considered putting a 60 watt on my
you can run a gantry on them. I mean, you've got to modify to run it on a, because like I said, like that was one of the things, like when I was in college, we made it that way. And because what we found out really quick, no matter what wattage you run at a 4x8, it's got to move with it, or that power isn't going to be enough to continue to cut anyways. You might mark something at that distance, but you're not cutting it.
Yeah, no.
And then that's where you run into the speed issue then, because then when it's on that gantry and it's moving mass, it changes. Like there's always so many variables on that.
Well, especially when you got to try and do water cooling through it too while it's moving.
Yeah, you're running all. It can be a nuisance, and it's unless you're needing something that you're doing it that way and you're running full production all the time, it's not worth it. Yeah, I mean, it's just my thought. Like, I mean, I've had them and ran them. They sound nice. Everyone's like, I want to get one that I can put, because like a lot of them too, most of them, you got pass through. So as long as you even got like a 40-inch width, a lot of them's got the doors opening on both sides, so you can pass an object through.
Yeah, the problem though.
Yeah, you're not going to register, but if you get some of the smarter stuff, you can register.
Well, that's a cool thing. Yeah, like Lightburn has a good registration system for that stuff now. But the problem, though, with most pass-throughs, and mine's the same way, is that, the pass-through is only like that high.
Yeah, right? Because you got to have the head clearance.
Well, yeah, and then that's the other problem, though, is it's that, like, if I open up my pass-throughs right now, my bed is it's above the pass-through.
Yeah.
To get my focal length.
Yeah.
So for me to burn anything,
you got to change your focal length lens.
It's got to drop down past it, plus the thickness of the material I'm trying to pass through. Material can't be more than that thick to pass through. And then how do I get my focal length? I'm going to have to change the focal tube. I'm going to have to change my lens.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just a simple, I got to pass through, I can start using it.
See, and like mine, it had an adjustable, but the downside, like when you go with all that, you lose the mass movement. So you got to slow your acceleration down.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, so like the advantages of the features kind of
wash.
Yeah,
I tell you,
wash it out.
the nicest thing, in my opinion, of the pass-throughs is what a lot of these people are doing, especially on the Omtech world and most of these worlds. They're upgrading to a better exhaust unit, right?
Yeah.
Exhaust fan. Well, they're going, the popular one is this one that's moving up to 400 CFM. And people are saying, oh, I'm still getting smoke, or oh, I'm still getting this. I'm like, there is no way you're moving 400 CFM if you're still getting anything. I mean, even 200 CFM, you're not going to get anything. So it's like, well, you know, what's going on? What's our problem? Or, oh yeah, you know, I noticed when I popped the lid a little bit, all of a sudden the smoke was gone. I'm like, well, you're trying to move so much CFM that you're creating a vacuum inside the laser.
Yeah. Well, that's like when you sealed yours up that good. I was kind of like, because like mine, Mike, the original one, literally the side, it wasn't like that double walled and all that like yours was. Mine, I would never, like yours, I'm like, man, that's going to pull a vacuum and pull that lid. I was like, mine, literally, I could slide like my fingers between the side because the case shifted that much.
Yeah.
And there was
all
like no.
All I was doing was isolating the side that pulls the vacuum.
Yeah.
But the rest of it still has its normal air leaks, right? But the cool thing is that since the pass-throughs are relatively small, you can open your right side, in my case, your right side pass-through, or even my front pass-through, and that'll allow the replacement air for that 400 CFM to come in.
Yeah,
because that's the reason a lot of these people are getting smoke still with these big fans, and they think, oh,
well, see, the other thing they don't understand either,
air
like,
in equals
air
air
out.
Got
the two different tile. Let me say hi to high temp to T's. Good to have you. The where you got the two different grates. Like literally, like what a lot of people don't understand is like, because I used to do a lot of like we'd cut wood purses and all that stuff out. When you put a whole sheet of wood down and your fans underneath, like you're not pulling air because you're pulling air through the sliver of the wood.
Right.
And people's like, oh, I got smoke all. Yeah, you're going to have smoke all on the top because it's not pulling the air around it because the vent's not situated where it can do that.
Right.
And
well, that's why we used to, with our FS laser, even though we had both tables, we used to we build little standoffs for a lot of the stuff that we would do cut throughs on, because you don't want it burning back.
Yeah, because like I said, you always hit them, even on the grates. You hit them marks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because like I said, on records that we did, literally we'd only use the center of the laser or the center of the record when we'd slide the records on there, and we had a nut that tightened it down, so the record was suspended, and then the pieces would drop out. Some people were like, "Why are you doing it that way?" I'm like, "Because if not, that light hits it, and then it literally remelts that plastic."
Right.
And
well, that's why there's quite a few people that what they're doing, and I don't know if I'll do it or not, or if I'll just use my knife table if the knife table's got enough knives to do it. But they're basically just taking a sheet of ply, and they're having the laser cut out circles, good size circles in the ply, like let's say inch plus, and then in between the circles, so like right in here, they'll have a 1-inch nail.
Yeah.
And they'll do
like a nail bed.
Yeah, they'll do a nail bed, and then by having all those holes, it's allowing the airflow.
Yeah, and you still got the stuff to set the things on, and they're minuscule points. So,
and you can build that for nothing. I mean,
yeah,
just a little time.
Yeah, and the nice thing too, doing it that way, you can hit them points with the nail, so you don't actually have to drive them through. You're pushing them through, but you're not literally having to drive with the hammer. You're just lasering the spots out for the nails.
Right. Yep.
Hey, Patty B, how's it going?
Hola.
But yeah, that's one of the things. There's so many little things like that, like where the airflow and all that, where it changes it.
Did I just lose camera?
Yeah.
Hang on, my battery might be dead. We'll see. Yeah, my battery's low.
It's back now.
You swap batteries. I'm still here.
Yeah. Did you have a good New Year's, Patty? Both Patties? Or Pam and Patty? Sorry.
Pammy?
Yeah, I've got, and then Tempted Teas also.
Where did here we go.
Honeycomb is terrible for flare-ups, nails, or screws are the best method. Yeah, that's what the print house just said.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, because the craziest thing too, most people within the first 3 months of getting a laser, if it's going to happen, they're going to burn their laser down within the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Because literally what happens is kind of like that. They'll have the honeycomb. They don't have the air assist hooked up. And then literally they're cutting, and then they either open the door when they see the smoke, which backdrafts instant, and or they forgot about it, walk away and leave it, thinking that it's a machine that you can let run by itself, and bye laser.
Right. Yep. Well, and I can tell you that even with our FS, we were doing, I want to say God, what were we doing? I think we were doing something with Surmark, and Bob was doing the burns. He was the one that usually ran the laser. And I think he hit a spot that wasn't coated.
Yeah.
And it reflected back and burned up the LED lights that were in the laser, lighting the area. Like we knocked out a section of the LED lights.
The embroidery tempted,
Well,
I've been
cool,
running it. I've been using it on and off. The biggest thing, they gave me software with it, and I never even put the software in. So I'm just going off the files that I've had saved.
Get the BAI.
Well, honestly, Mike, like when you sent me that, see that the company which I can't even pronounce the one I got, that's the worst thing, but the Halagamu or whatever, they actually,
Haliyamo.
Yeah, they say it like the one way, but then when they call you on the phone, they mispronounce the other parts of the words. So I don't know if they're even saying it wrong, and they just, like, everyone's been saying it the way they do. But the BAI, Mike, they have them in their factory, believe it or not.
Right. Well, that's what
they're doing the assembly. Like the Halagamu is like literally like, and it's not that they're arrogant or anything. They are the largest manufacturer in China of the embroidery, and because they make them for everyone else. And then like their flagship is their own brand, I guess you would say. And they're making all these other ones for everyone else. But like they're doing stuff like a good example, as you know, like the older Tajimas back in every embroidery machine, they had stepper motors. Like I think I'd have to check on Rise. Rise might be servos, but a lot of the older ones were steppers. So what would happen, you would have that where you'd lose the steps on it. And so
right.
But like it's got servo motor, it's got all this, like the technology's there. And so like it's a matter of, and then even like their head itself, like the unit that goes up and down, that is the Tajima unit. Like they use the same unit. A Tajima one would snap right on there. And even
how much did you say your two head cost with shipping?
It was right around $8,000, $7,500 to like
so similar
$7,500 to $8,000, somewhere in that range.
I didn't check with her because she made it sound like, because there's a couple of the reps that are online for BAI, and they had the one heads in Houston, which is the closest for me, so you could just drive down and pick it up, and they were like what, like 4,700, 4,800, something like that.
And that's like the same thing.
The two head was like 7,100, which is still not bad, but they only have that in like California.
Yeah.
So if I got to pay freight to get it here too, that's another 500 plus bucks.
Yeah. See, and that was the nice thing. I'll have a video soon, the print house. But that was the other nice thing, which the Halagamu, what they're doing now, though, they're only having distributors on the single head. So you have to be a rep in the US to sell them or buy them from one. There's a lady in Texas, her name's Mary. She's like the #1 sales rep. Like they ask me, the numbers are good for the margins you're getting, but the downside is that they don't want you to do support with them. So like if someone gets one and they have like, let's say an issue, they want you to refer back to them and have their techs handle it, which is, to me, is stupid. Like it's like saying, hey, go to, like you bought a Ford truck, don't take it to your local Ford dealer, call Ford up in Detroit and have them fix your Ford.
Gotcha.
You don't do that. And it's not bad. They're there around the clock. Literally, like I could message them right now and they would probably answer me and either send me the question or live video chat me. But you also do run into the issue that in China, every person has to speak English. They have to learn English, but it is not, as you know, not the best English. So like, even like when I was doing the setup, I'm like, what do you, like, there's words that don't come across. And so it's not bad per se, but like literally they get you set up, they show you what you're doing. And like the other question I had, which I had to go online, they helped me set up the Wi-Fi to it. But I'm like, how do I send it wirelessly from my computer? And they're like, just go on and look in the book. Well, the book, as you know, most things from China is not the best. It's like me trying to type. I mean, it's that broken English. And I'm like, I don't understand how you send from here. Like I had to find someone else online to help me. but it's kind of some of it, it's simple, but like the other thing they do too, like on a hat where you've got to rotate it when you do the hat, your image in their software, it's already flipped around 180. Like, so when you indicate your hoop on the screen, it automatically rotates the file to be upside down.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's nothing like big, like anyone could technically do that, but it just makes it a little bit more intuitive. So, like if you're running a shirt and you're like, oh, I'm going to use the same image, even though you probably wouldn't. But if you're doing the shirt and then you put the hat hoop on and you tell it it's the hat hoop, it flips that image around 180.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of kind of like, well, Rye did it in his one live. He didn't flip the image 180, ran the hat. And so, but it's weird too. Like when I was asking them, because there's a way.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So when you change to, mine, well, the Ricoma, I mean, the Ricoma, I thought the Tajima did that too. The Ricoma does that. Like if I choose the cap.
Yeah, it rotates your image 180.
It automatically rotates the image.
Yeah, so you don't have to ever worry. And the Tajima doesn't, because I know Rye had it happen 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
And then my Mystagram didn't either. So like every time I would run, hey, how's it going, Federation of Nerds? But yeah, like I said, and there's little things. I mean, because the funny thing is that controller is the same as like they're all using that same controller. Like even a lot of the US company ones.
Okay.
So like the controller itself, even though they have that in there, it's nothing really special per se. It is similar to even like some of the older, or I wouldn't say older, but some of the Ricomas run that same one, that A15 or whatever software. They just got it embedded with their own image on it.
That's good to know.
It is the same button layouts and everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so like I told people, I was like, they were smart about that, where it's stuff that if someone's using like, or if they're using like some of the Baby Lock or whatever, or I want to say some of the brothers, hey Marnie, how's it going? But like, so they do a lot of things like that, which I guess it makes it a little bit more intuitive or easier to understand. But some of the things too are just kind of like I'm not like I've liked it so far, but I'm not still like there's some things I'm still not 100%. Like I literally, what's crazy, I set both the heads up, but I still haven't ran anything both heads because I haven't had any major jobs come in.
Yeah.
Where I needed it, or like the other day, like I called Ramon because I was like, hey, how do you do the Velcro patches? Because like the way that I thought, which is the way he said also, where you would embroider it out on the material and then do like a stitch line, like take it out, stick it down there, do the stitch line and have it do the
border,
whatchamacallit, around it, and then you just trim it off.
Right.
But because I was asking him, and then my next question was like, where do I buy loop and hook, but only buy the loop? Because if you're doing a patch, now you've got the hook that you're not going to need because you're only putting it on the one.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look at where I was ordering mine. I used to do get just that.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and see.
Because to me, like what popped in my head is like the whole Twix thing. I'm gonna have a pile of like hoop over it because yeah. And then the one person like, well, you can just put it on the patch and give it to them, and they can peel it off. So and I'm like, yeah, but there's got to be a way just to buy the one, because people that are making like the hats or whatever with the one, they don't give you the other end, so you only get the one side. So
right.
It was something like I had an order for that, but then they haven't committed yet. So I haven't had to make them yet. But that was one of the only things that like I've tested both, but I haven't ran really anything major on it. I've been just running small stuff for me. And like not using the software, I'm still using my digitizer. So like that's what sucks too. Because like a simple project, like a name.
So is their machine have Ethernet?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can send everything over the network?
Yeah, and then you can also use it Wi-Fi also.
Oh, it has Wi-Fi?
Yeah, it's got Wi-Fi. And it's got an Ethernet. And you can use because what's funny, when they had me hook it up, we went through the Ethernet way, then they went through each way and showed me, but they didn't show me on my computer end. They logged on their system to send the file through that way. So I'm
assuming you have to use their software to send it wirelessly to the machine.
So far, I'm thinking so, but
that's the way my Ricoma is.
ZSK has one also though that will go through there because it's supposed to pop up on your screen, like in your little network window, almost like a Bluetooth thing. But like I said, it's in the book, but I haven't really done that much because it's easier for me just to put it on a USB drive.
Yeah, same. God, I love not having to mess with that.
But
It's like,
it's kind of cool to not have like but I haven't done that many files to really. But to me, I was like, that's awesome feature because then you can access it from your computer, send it out there. If you're adjusting, like a good thing, like where I was doing the hats the other day, adjusting the density of the hat for the foam. But the downside was too, like I said, I'm not really using their software. So what was killing me was like I was having the people that was digitizing for me. I'd be like, hey, make it thicker, do this or that, and then so resend it out there and
right.
And then they also have like the stylus and all that give you a stylus pin, but you can literally write on the screen and it will convert it to
interesting.
a thread. But like it's some of it's like more or less gimmicky stuff because it's only doing like a set. Like you're not going to draw a whole image on there like a crazy thing, but
right.
if you wanted like a freehand your name or something, it gives you the ability to. The single head BIA was 48 shipped to me in Delaware from Houston. Yeah, attempted that is where
that was weird. Sorry.
Mike's at tempted is Mike's in he's in Texas, but that's what he was saying because he was looking at that one where they actually had it in his
Houston
area, the single head.
Yeah, well, they've got it down in Houston, yeah, which is 4 or 5 hours away, 4 hours away, whatever it is.
Yeah, because tempted typed in there, it was 4,800
shipped.
Yeah.
So I should ask him just for grins if that 7,200 or whatever was just shipped from.
Well, see, and like that's what my big thing was, Mike, is like, is to dump a brand new price of Tajima. I was like, I'll give it a shot to see just because the amount that I can buy compared to Tajima. Because I had someone get in the comments, they're like, well, that was your only reason. And I was like, it's not necessarily that because if you buy a used machine, you don't know how they used it.
Right.
And, that it's just in anything. Embroidered, like I've seen auto presses that were ran good. I've seen people destroy them.
Oh, yeah.
And then embroidery, it's like that's a big thing. If like you don't oil it all the time when you're supposed to, you can destroy that stuff. And then coming from the engineering side is like metal's metal. So if something's turning and it's made out of the same metal, no matter what it's gonna wear. And that's like where someone's like, I'm like, it's the quality thing, like the gear, like I mean, and Juan's a good example. Juan had to change that 5 head. He's went through and rebuilt almost every head on that thing. So even though he got a good deal, you got to add that cost into it too of rebuilding, maintenance, upkeep.
Right.
So if you buy something for let's say 10 grand and then you got to put another 5 grand in because you upgraded, now you're 15 grand. I mean, the numbers start adding up really quick. And then, or like the one where he did from where it had the floppy drive and he converted it to USB. When you're so far back on technology, eventually it gets harder and harder to find an emulator or newer stuff. Where kind of like here's like you just literally send it.
I can't stand the interface on the old ones. It's like,
and that's the other thing too. It's like so weird that because it's noises, beeps. It's
it's like a 1980s video game.
Yeah, the dot matrix. It's like, and it's just that alone too. It's like, I mean, granted, you're not buying the machine for that, but like,
right.
But
it makes a difference.
It does make
usability that much easier or that much harder, and the fact that like when I. Just like on any of the newer machines, if you've got to back up because of a thread break or whatever, you can actually see exactly where it is.
Yeah, and I was just saying that's the major thing. Like, because I watch Try all the time, and like a good example, mine it shows the image flipped. So I look at the screen, I'm like, it's right. He doesn't know. He doesn't know it.
Yeah,
and it stitches it halfway out, and then he's like, oh, I ruined the hat, and because it doesn't have the flip. And then on the thread break, you can be like, oh, I want to back up to here. You see it on your screen.
Right.
You see everything on there, and it's kind of. Like mine's even got like it gives you a red indicator on the screen. So if you put the wrong size hoop in there, and of course you tell it it's that hoop, it will show the image going around it. It shows it red, and it'll ask you like 3 times before you hit enter. Are you sure it's correct and all that stuff? So I mean, it's kind of
right.
He just said,
so they're basically getting $800 for their freight.
Yeah,
for the 2 head. That's still, I mean, again, not terrible considering I paid, $19 for my 2 head.
Well, so, you got to think where he's having it shipped to, Mike. Look, he's in Delaware.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm assuming freight's going to be pretty much freight, especially if they're going to lift. And I'm wondering if that's lift gated too.
Yeah, that's a good question. Hey, Eddie, how's it going?
If it's $800 shipping, that's probably lift gated, but
yeah, that's the other thing. And then
Happy New Year.
The other thing too, which like the 2 head things, is finding the space because they do fit through a normal door, but it takes up a lot more space a 2 head than it does
Well, oh, see, that's one of the reasons I bought a 2 instead of a single when I got mine, because it was only like 40% more money, and it was only like 40% more space.
Yeah,
So
and that's the thing too, like, because like I ran that single that I had before, Mike, and I hated it because like I'd get an order for hats, and like you'd be like, they're like, we want 50 hats, and then 8 minutes a hat, you're like, dude, I'm not making money on these things. Because like at first you're like, oh, I'm gonna do simple, and then you start looking at the thread count and all that, and you're like, wow, I need multiple heads or another, and it's like, so I would sub them ones out, and then finally I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna get it, and then like I had issues big time with hats, which of course not knowing much about it, and then they were like, Meistagram was horrible on their service. They're just like, well, try this, but like getting a tech because there was no one in my state. It was coming from like North Carolina. And the amount that I had to pay to get them here, I was like, forget this.
Yeah, you pay a fortune, yeah. Well, it's funny because one of the guys that I've chatted with a little bit over the years that's doing embroidery, he's got a company called Lid Locker. You can look him up. But in August of 20, he had finally moved out of his house, and I believe he had a 6-head and either 1 or 2 single heads, and he had hired 1 part-time employee. And that was in August of last year, of 20. As of start of December, he was in his 3rd location now. He was first in his house, then he moved into a location. Now he's in a 3rd location. He's got 51 heads of embroidery and 13 full-time employees. And that's all he does is hats.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and the big thing is like, you can expand up to it, but you've got to be willing to like to put the, I mean, because it's like you said too, the cost to go to multiple heads compared to buying a single.
Right.
Like if and the thing is, you got to look ahead and understand that. Bless you. You got to understand most people are going to want multiple items because like I didn't get in.
I mean, that's the market you want to go after, right?
Yeah, like I didn't get in it to do the mom and pops one color thing for their kids.
Right.
And that was a thing. Like when I had it at first, I'm like, oh, it's cool, I can do that. But by the time like I would quote like a good example, stockings, like putting the name on it. Like we would do 10 or 15 bucks. Well, then we'd post online and you get some grandma on there. I'll do it for $2. And I'm like, I'm not going any less because by the time for even me to set up, spell the name and hoop it, I was like, it's not worth it. Yeah. But you get like the grandma that had the little sewing machine at her house that she could do that. She wasn't making money. And then, or I would get the people like, yeah, we want it, but we want to pay this much. And I'm like, I can't do that with the single head. This is the time to get it done. And I was like, it's not.
Well, and it's the same with us with our print side. I mean, it's almost like we almost don't do anything for less than $50. Because I mean, our time is going to be that, right? And embroidery, it's even harder because, like you said, there's certain small jobs that come in. And it's like, that should be or even on the laser is a good example. If somebody wants 1 cup, I'm like, yeah, I can do it for as low as $25, but I'm not gonna because you're going to take up an hour and a half of my time between dealing with you, doing the art, setting up the laser, putting the rotary in.
That $25.
No, I mean, now if I'm doing 10 or 20, yeah, no problem. I'll do them for cheaper. But if I'm doing 1 or 2, no.
Yeah, well, it's like that one guy. Like I watch lots of people. He's in Wyoming or whatever. I think his name's Derek or whatever. He's got like that UV flatbed and all that stuff. And literally, like the other day, he did a thing where he's got the Suma, but he's got the flatbed.
Yep.
And he's making boxes. It's fine to do prototype. And he did that whole thing on the video. He was like, it's going to take a month and a half to do this order. I'm going to have to pay someone. And I'm like, you're stupid. You picked the wrong method. And he was like, well, I'm making this much a box. And I'm like, I got a clicker press because we used to stamp out hats. And I got International Paper next to me. They make all the commercial boxes for, there's other box companies, but they're one of your largest box companies. We print the shirts and all that for them. They use clicker presses. There's a reason you use them. It's just as quick as you can stamp cardboard. Right. And he was like, well, we're doing that. They customized the boxes. Yeah, time to make something. The print house.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I don't have beef with people, but when someone's like, yeah, I'm going to do this and run it 3 months. And I'm like, that's stupid. I was like, and he had the numbers, how many he was making. And I was like, I'll click that out in a week for you right now. Cause they were only like this big a box. And I'm like, I got a clicker press, even to buy a die for a clicker. It's like $80 to have a wood clicker press to hold the blades, put it on it's nothing. But he was like, how he was looking at it. He was like, oh, well, I've got this machine. I'm like, that machine's not made to cut boxes all day long and crease them. I'm like, if you're going to do it full time, you buy the right machine for it. You don't, it's like someone using a little Cricut and making stickers of 10,000 stickers.
Right.
Can you do it? Yeah. Is that the right machine? No. I mean, wish I had a machine like that. Like, well, and like I said, I was like, that's the thing. Like that flatbed, don't get me wrong. It's awesome that he's got that Sumo flatbed, but it's kind of like it's made to do other things. It's not really made to do cardboard boxes for full production runs because you're cutting it, it's creasing. I mean, it's not like I forget its time. It was like 3 to 4 minutes a box. I'm clicking out. We're talking seconds per boxes, and that's a manual clicker.
On a manual clicker, you can do seaming too.
Yeah, because what it is like on the die itself, because like the cowboy hats we made, we did it that way. They put a crease blade in there, and so it's not recessed as deep. So when it comes down, it's doing the crease. But yeah, you just stack it up and it does the crease. And then granted, if you go with the better clicker besides the wood ones, they can even be more intuitive. Like they can do the relief cuts.
Absolutely correct, Mike. Space is a big part of that game. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. You know, you're paying for that real estate for that space. So
yeah, well, and that's the other thing too. As big as his machine is, that flatbed, my clicker press it's about the size of my desk here. I mean, it's a 20-ton clicker press, and it's kind of what you use in leather. Because that's what you use in leather to do the gaskets and all that.
Right.
They make bigger clicker presses, but like literally the size for what I can do with that compared to what he's doing. Now, granted, clickers are only good for clicking out gaskets or even dies. Like if you're doing stickers, if you're doing oval stickers all day long, you're better to gang them all up, put them on a sheet, use a clicker. But you've got to be doing like.
Well, that's like it's funny because it's like watching the other day. He was doing the business cards, and I forget what the little machine is that he does, a slicer.
Yeah.
You know, and those are cool. Don't get me wrong. But like the friend of mine here that does quick digital printing for me when I need like cards like today.
Yeah.
He's got one of those friggin' where it's like a $4,000 blade and he cuts through the entire stack of business cards at one time.
Yeah. And I mean,
they're cut out and done in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. And then like what the print house said too, he's getting work from like his brother-in-law's son for like, so it's cheap labor. It's like hiring your kids.
Yeah.
Like I can't hire. I don't have kids, but like I can't hire all these other people. I mean, heck, you see my little nephew that one day, Mike, we were on the phone cussing me. But like, it's kind of like some of it. Like I wouldn't say people live in fantasies, but like it's like you've got to understand what machines are made for and use them for that. Because I mean, like he did a video the other day. He said he did 80,000 on a Melco embroidery machine, just the Melco alone embroidering one machine. I don't know how. Maybe. Because I've never seen it on his video using that much. And maybe I'm wrong on numbers, but my numbers don't, like, you got to do a heck of a lot of hats, shirts, and polos to hit them numbers. It just, I mean, you know how it is. Like, you've been in the business long enough. Like, and then like the other day he got mad at me because he said he was shutting down the shop. I watched the video and I was like,
that was, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew he wasn't, but then on his other one, like today, he got mad. I'm like, so what are you doing with all your stuff? And he's like, you got to watch more than 20 minutes in. I was like, you just said you're not doing the 2-week turnaround anymore. You didn't officially say. I mean, I went back and rewatched it, and I'm like, but honestly, like he gets that rent free because it's his brother-in-law's bill. Like people don't understand like that size of space that he has there. You know how much space. He's not. I'm not knocking him, but he's not making that.
No.
Like. I mean, like he's complained with me on stuff. He's like, no, we pay. Like, no, you're renting it from your brother or someone you know. You're not paying that much space.
And they're using it for all that huge storage.
Yeah, because his brother owns a cabinet company, and that's all that wood in the background. Because like some of the stuff too, it's like you don't buy stock of some of the things that he does. His wife was and like
I'm not going to fault him. You know, but you know, it's like anything else. And I'm sure we do things like that, even with stuff we do, right? It's like, especially on the sublimation side, it's like, there's way more cost-effective ways to do certain things. Sometimes you just get close to the line, right? Like, you know, again, one-hit embroidery machine, there's plenty of people out there making good money with it. They've got their niche. For us, it's like, wow, that's kind of a pain in the butt, but I can do it. Yeah, but it's not quite as cost-effective if I had a 6-head or
Yeah.
Flatbed, same thing, right? Well, yeah, I can get a $40,000-$50,000 used flatbed, but it's got higher maintenance. It's not as fast as something newer. It's not as blah 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 blah. But again, it depends on your market and your niche, right? So it's hard. I know sometimes it's hard to judge, not to judge.
Yeah, because it's
we
like
see
people like
ways that we do things,
sublimation
but
tumblers.
yeah,
You can make a killing using a little desktop printer. Now,
right.
granted, once you get into understanding like the volume of like a 48-inch printer, then you're like, why was I ever using that? Because the cost of paper is like nothing.
Oh
compared.
yeah, and ink. Yeah.
Yeah, but can it be done? Yeah, they're like the money's there, but like I look at it on some things like to me it's not practical because it doesn't add up. Or like when he's in, look, he might be making 80,000 on embroidery. And I mean, because I've seen some of his numbers, like he said he can make colors at 3 locations with super color. That is a $50 shirt because you got to buy minimum. Now you can buy less, but 20 of them for front, back, and sleeve because you can't gang anything.
Oh, you can't.
Well, they don't allow gang. Well, they're supposed to allow ganging this year.
Well, heck, just pay Juan to do a full color sublimation all over then.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, and that was the thing too, though, because like he was like, yeah, we can make money on super color doing 3 locations. Hey, what's up, JBM? And to me, like, I can't make, I mean, maybe it's my market, but I can't charge someone that much money for what them transfers would cost, print time, press time, and all that.
Right. Well, there's no question because I mean, he's mentioned some of his sales numbers before, like what he can sell certain things for, and I can't touch those numbers. He's way higher than I'm.
Yeah, the most insane thing, like when he went over to car magnets, $80 for a car magnet, a little. What? Yeah, that's what he was because he's sponsored by that other print company now.
Well, yeah.
But literally, and that's what it was on there. He's like, I'm going to use theirs instead of using my equipment. He was like, because I only need 2 magnets. It was $80 when you pulled up that, which I mean, I could have went to Custom Ink for cheaper or Vistaprint and got magnets for $30. But now, did that guy really pay it? I don't know. I mean, he might have paid it one time. He ain't going back there again, $80 a magnet. But
yeah.
Like some of his numbers are like too astronomically out there. But
hey, it's great if he's getting it. That's great.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, and then some people do get that price. So I mean, like, it's because I mean there are companies that don't want to be bothered and they're gonna pay whatever it is if they've dealt with you long enough.
Right.
But I mean, I can tell you this, like every company I've dealt with, like RC Components, like they've switched back and forth to using me and not using me, and they just because they save 10 cents. So like, because at the end of the day, some of your bigger companies, the quality, it doesn't matter. It's the price. I mean, it should quality matter, but some of these people just want to save literally because at the end of the day, if it's a promotional product and they're giving it away and it's not something that holds their customer doesn't value the sticker as they're making it. So if the sticker peeled off within a month, they don't, like, the customer's not blaming a sticker. They're blaming a company that printed the sticker.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And so for RC, if it fell apart within a month, they could care less because you're going to buy another sticker now. And like, so the quality, like, because even on the shirts, like they left us for 10 cents. They came back because apparently the other people couldn't keep the good enough quality or the numbers up. But they left for 10 cents. But they also are a company that like we would print like for the owner, and it would be like a 3 or 4 color print. The ones that he sold, and like the owners would be on like whatchamacallit, some like high dollar shirts, like a Next Level. And then the ones that he would sell to the public would be a Gildan, like the cheapest Gildan, and he would cut that image and do half tones, but wouldn't do the gray in it and all that stuff just to save money. And they would sell it $20. And
hey, Mike, are you talking about what you would pay for a car magnet, or are you talking about what your customers would pay for a car magnet? Because I know, like for us, we don't do any small magnets. We usually ours are custom sized. But I mean, I always talk people out of those cheesy little 12 by 18 magnets that nobody can read and they look like crap. Matter of fact, I usually talk people out of magnets in general. I mean, we do them. And
the gets behind it, scratches the paint, destroys the vehicle.
And they look like crap. They look temporary. Yeah. There's so many better options. But, you know, for the right niche, their work, you know, they've got their place. But we only stock and we only use Magnum Magnetics Digimac 30 mil. So, you know, it's about the most expensive magnetic material you can use. So ours aren't going to be cheap. I mean, a typical somewhere in the like 18 by 24 size for 2 of those. We're normally around $80 for them. Sometimes more, sometimes up to 100. But so roughly $40 each. But I mean, I usually talk people out of them because I'm like, well, look, we could do that size print in a nice graphic applied to your car for less money and it's going to look better. Or we've got another new material that's, I forget the name of the technology, but it's those little micro bubbles. So it's way better than like static. It actually clings to the paint and it works really well. It looks more permanent. It's not as likely to come off. It is removable and reusable. And I can do those for cheaper than a magnet. So I normally talk people out of magnets anyhow. Now, if they want a cheap magnet, go to Vistaprint and use that crappy thin material. But
like the print house said too, he did have a good point here. He said you really should outsource most products if you don't run them yourself daily. It's just not worth it. And like I agree with him on that because like I've talked to him, like the biggest thing, like where I can print banners, I've got like a lot of these online vendors that I use, Mike, like Sign 365, I think it is.
Oh yeah.
Like the price that I can get one of them for, and I get it to my door in 3 days. So I'm able to not tie up my machine, and I'm paying.
What'd you say that was for?
Sign 365.
For what though? For what product are we talking about?
Oh, like banners and all that stuff.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we do most banners in house. I mean, there's only a few times that I'll send that stuff out. It just depends. Certain size things like the oversized stuff I'll send out. And if it's a higher quantity that they want or the higher density materials, like the 18-ounce flagpole double-sided banners, I'll send those out. But in general, that's something that we like to stick with in house because they're cheap, quick, and easy. But
and like if you've got the size already on hand, it's but like to me,
and I pretty much stock 54 or 60-inch banner rolls. So I mean, as long as I'm not wasting material, and somebody's like, "Oh, I only need one 24-inch by 8-foot banner," I'm like, "Well, crap! Then I'm going to throw away at least double my material."
You're splicing it up, and like
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 2 of them for half price.
And then, like I said, but that was just like an example. But like I use, like I'll outsource a lot of stuff, just because some of these pricing is just like so much cheaper than, and like it's not necessarily cheaper, but like for instance, if I had one head strike on the job, it would have paid what I was paying for some of these other jobs, getting it done outsourced. Or if we're getting behind, like I mean, my problem is like I still don't. I've got that latex sitting out there. I still haven't hooked it up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like I've got the Suma sitting out there too, just still not hooked up. But like I help B and Pam out with her banners at one time, like because literally she needed banners in what was it, a week, Pam? Like Pam ordered on Wednesday or Thursday, and we had them to her. Yeah, it was Thursday, and we had them to her that Monday, using that online place.
I was gonna say because I mean, like that was our specialty for years prior to COVID was equipment wraps. And invariably, we would do 1-day production, and we'd ship them overnight to the customer.
And that's a nice thing, Mike. Like, right? Like, I mean, I've got good shipping, but like that other place that I use, it's like it's either free shipping or the other one's $10 shipping, but it's next day air. And so,
really?
Yeah. So, like, you can't if I order on a Monday, I will have it to me Wednesday.
Gotcha.
Because they run it the next, depending what time you put it in. But like, so it's usually that quick.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, let's talk. I've been wrapping cars since 2008, so printed wraps. So,
well, yeah, it's like one of the things. But like Pam got the banners and all that quick, and it was something that like even if me printing it, I like for me to ship it because I would have had to ship it like my cost on the shipping. I couldn't have competed with their overnight pricing without like
adding that. Yeah, that's surprising that they're doing that. So that's a great deal.
Yeah, and so like, and granted, like you're paying more, but for the scheme of things, when you add it into that, because it was something like I didn't have the material on hand. It was something I was like, and I told her to just use them direct.
Right.
And they were letting people sign up, but then apparently they stopped, like without having all the requirements. Like she didn't have something. She was working out of her house, and they didn't want that as a thing. So all I did, because they'll do drop shipping for free also. So all I literally did is log on to my account, sent the files, and then went at it that way. But I mean, there's a lot of the things like I can see outsourcing, or like when people are starting out, is
Right.
like because not everyone has printers and all that stuff.
Whoop.
For like someone that's starting out in the business, is like, to me, is like, don't turn down a job.
Right.
Find someone to outsource it to. Like that is like, if you don't have a like you brought up that one day where I needed laser work.
Right.
Don't turn the job down. Find someone that has one, and just like, hopefully you can get a good enough deal on laser work, and then but eventually you do it so then eventually you can make your money back and buy your own. Because like, it's like, even on screen printing, if someone came to you and was like, hey, I want 10,000 shirts, you're not going to turn them down. You're not going to print a manual either. You're going to find a local shop and that you've used, or and be like, hey, I need this printed, just because it ain't worth your time. And that's like, even on the other stuff, if you don't have the equipment, like if someone wants stickers and you don't have a sticker machine, there are plenty of places online nowadays that like does wholesale pricing and that are fairly quick turnaround time, that you can still make a business without having that equipment.
Yeah, you can. And again, it's always your niche, right? I mean, if you've got the right customers, it's going to make sense. So, I mean, we do a fair amount of that work, but it comes and goes, and it's typically either existing customers that we've had for a long time, or referrals for those customers that we've had for a long time that we do. As a matter of fact, I just got an order for another 1,000 for Palapa Bar and Grill down in Belize. They've been a customer for a couple of years.
I love that place. No.
Yeah. So we print theirs, and they actually put them on all their cups, and they put them on some other stuff. And yeah, so I mean, but
it's like cut sew. I mean, I don't do cut sew, but when people ask for it, like I've got them vendors that do all my other cut sew stuff, and it's like literally, I mean, it's $5 to $6 a shirt that I'm paying for a t-shirt to get cut sewn.
Right.
I mean, granted, they want more than one shirt, so I like, if someone comes to me like, we want one, the numbers aren't there to do one, but like, I'm not gonna like turn it down. I'm just gonna, if they want more than one, I'm gonna do it that way. Or if they want one, then I'm gonna be like, hey, throw them an astronomical price out there, more or less to turn them away. And then if they bite on it, then I'm gonna make it. But it's kind of, that's one of the things I've always done.
Yeah, the print house. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that happens. I honestly have never had that happen, at least not that I'm aware of. Nobody's ever told me anything. They're all normally real happy with my quotes. Matter of fact, I do some wholesale printing for other shops. And I'm kind of high on my wholesale rate when I know where they could go get it cheaper, but they don't. So they still use me, and they're happy with the quick response. And then I do some things, especially like, for example, on banners that they're not going to be able to get from anybody else, really, especially the big guys, where I custom print their logo and their information on the back side of the banner hems. So that way they can use that as another sales tool for them when they're giving it to their customers, and we're basically producing them. So
yeah, if I subbed one out, I can't do that because they're not going to. I mean, I could print it, but they're not going to roll the edge to put it on the back side.
That's my point. Yep.
Yeah.
So we can offer that. We offer that to our wholesale customers, and they love it because and that keeps us.
But I'm just gonna cut a sticker and throw it on the back, Mike. No.
Yeah. There you go.
That's a good. I never thought that's a great idea right there.
Yeah, we've always done it for us.
I mean, because the other thing too, as I started you can put your own on it too, so that
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I always put our own on the back. I've always done that for our banners. But when I started offering it wholesale, I thought, oh well, I just started leaving our stuff off and leaving them blank. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why don't I add their stuff on there? They'll freak out and they'll love it and they'll never switch. So we started doing that a couple of years ago, and yeah, it's worked out well. So, yeah, I mean, it's good. I tell you what, I hate to run, guys, but I have to run and take care of a few quick things. I will jump back on chat if you guys are still on in another 15, 20 minutes, but I will be not on video. So take care, guys. I'll see you in a little bit.
You should try that substance vinyl, Mike.
Yeah, I've got the sample roll actually.
I know a lot of people swear by it. I know you're stuck with the brand you use, but
well, I wouldn't use it for any high-end stuff. I'd use it for kind of its specific niches. Yeah. And honestly, it's funny because back in the day we used to do a lot of dirt bike graphics, and that's how they started.
Yeah, they're a dirt bike company. That's what they originally were. or
Right.
doing.
So I could look at, because I still have a lot of connections in that world and in the motorcycling world. So I could consider looking at leveraging that too. So yeah, I'll definitely be considering that. But I will be back a little bit later, guys.
All right.
Take
Great
care.
having you, Mike.
Thanks, man.
All right, everyone. Thanks, everyone, so far that's been on. Is there any questions that I can answer, anyone? It's great to have you on here, everyone, too. Thank you, B and Pam. Thank you, Pat. Oh, and let me get out. Now I see some other questions, too, Pat. Wow. How hard is it wrapping a car? Depending what kind of car, Pat. Like Mike does a lot more wrapping than I have. I'm from Detroit, but I'm not that kind of rapper. But it like wrapping certain things like panel vans aren't too bad. It's gonna take a little time. Mike's got videos on there where he's actually on his lives. He's wrapped full vehicles on lives. Like when you get into like exotic cars where you've got all these curves and all that, it's a lot more time. But like you can actually like there's classes you can go to. 3M has classes for wrapping. And because they'll teach you a lot of the little techniques on how to do some of the other stuff. Most of the wrapping I've been to one class. Most of it's just been literally trial and error, messing with my own stuff and my friend's stuff. But it does take some time. Like I would wrap your stuff start with rims. Rims are fairly simple item. Well, not fairly simple, easier than some other items to wrap. Start with maybe a grill of a car. Start with the hood. Work on your own stuff, and eventually, as it gets better, move into the other side because some of it's not as bad to do. Great having you at the print house. Thanks again. It's great having you at the print house. Thank you so much for stopping in. But yeah, it's Patty. It's one of them things. It's just like anything in the industry. It takes time. But once you got it down pat, it's something else you can offer. What some places do too is, and like I'm a perfect example. If I get something that it's like a car or something that I don't feel comfortable doing, we have a guy in town here that's all he does is wrap vehicles. So literally, he gives me a fee for me that I'll charge onto the vehicle wrap, and literally I just send him over to wrap the vehicle. Or like we've done monster trucks, we've done big things, and I mean I'm paying him, but like he's done a lot more than I have. I'll put it on the TV in the shop. I just wanted to see the chat. I just won't see the chat. Thank you so much to Print House. I'm grateful. Keep an eye out to Print House. It got shipped out like Friday, I want to say, Thursday. How much do you charge for that? It all depends, Patty. Because like you have half wrap, quarter wraps, full wraps, and then it depends on what kind of vehicle you're wrapping. It also comes into how much vinyl you're using. So like if you're wrapping like a box truck compared to like a mini, you're going to use more vinyl on the box truck compared to you would on the mini. So you've got to factor like there's the area of how much you're using because the other thing too, you got to look and see if you're doing a full wrap. Like some vehicles will only wrap up to the door, like on work trucks, just because it costs more to wrap the upper part. And like on a pickup truck, for instance, you got the A pillar and that's it, and you got the top of the truck. No one's seeing the top of the truck unless you're in a helicopter or you're a tall person. So if you're doing just the lower wrap below the door, you get a nice two-tone effect and you're saving some money. Some people will wrap all the way up. Some people don't. So it just depends on what you're doing. A wrap can be as low as 800 up to, it depends on what kind of vinyls you want to use. Like, because see, you've got the printed vinyl and then you've got the wrap vinyl. So them are like your chameleons and all that stuff. But it's 800 and up, depending on, and like in the $800 wrap is not going to be a full wrap. You might be wrapping a hood, accents, maybe just the door section of it where the vehicle will look wrapped, but it's not a full wrap. Like on, let's say on a plumbing company, you're putting stickers all over it, but you're not actually having to print the whole vehicle. You might be using the base color also. It just depends, because that's like what Mike was doing too with the doors. Some of them, when he was doing, like where he was saying, instead of the magnet, he's going to probably do a sectional piece. So he's not wrapping your whole vehicle. Even if you wrap the whole door, he's only using that door wrap section. So that's going to vary too. So like I said, depending on what you're doing will determine the cost of that. And of course, too, if he's just doing the door, it's not $800, because it would be cheaper, like he said too, than the magnets that he quoted for 80. So on that, you're gonna factor in like the cost of the vinyl that you printed. On that stuff too, a lot of it you're not using the calendar vinyl. How long does wraps last? Normally it's 3 to 5 years. The vinyl can stick on there longer. The problem is if you leave vinyl on that long, you're not getting it off easy. You're gonna have to use the wheels. Like it will stay on there longer, depending on like if they use the laminate over top, so it's not gonna fade. It will stay, and like because we've talked about this before. Like Mike would be a good example. If you get like if someone brings you a vehicle and they're like, hey, it was wrapped 5 to 7 years ago, we want it re-wrapped. Your best bet is to send that to someone else, because normally like you're going to heat the vinyl and peel it off to put the new wrap on it. That vinyl is going to crack, and it's going to crack in a million pieces as you're trying to peel that. Something that's 5 to 7 years old. It might not crack when it's on there, like it might be solid, but when you go to peel that, hey Mike, you're the perfect example on this, Mike. Patty B was asking, for one, how much do you charge for like the magnets on a door up to the full wrap, pricing on that. And then she was also wondering, how long does it last? Which I was saying you wouldn't want to leave it on really 3 to 5 years is the max, because if you got to rewrap a vehicle to peel it off, it's miserable. It's going to peel off in little sections. So the wrap doesn't work the best. And there you go, Patty. Mike says, yeah, same thing. Life of the wrap varies on location, how it's packed and parked and mounted, etc. Typically 3 to 5 years. Long time no talk, Mike. Good to have you, Mike, the other Mike. Wrap on motorcycles been on there 10 years. Now, here's the question, Mike. What's it like getting that wrap off of that motorcycle? Well, if it's a dirt bike, it's probably not as bad because they're just in sections. But like the big thing you will run into is removing the vinyl, Patty. Like, so if you got to rewrap something, or if they didn't use the right vinyl, because some people will use, like a good example, you can use cheaper vinyl, but it's not made to go on vehicles per se. And so that's when you're, oh, it's a cruiser painted. So you think, Mike, after 10 years, you can get that off? In one, well, I wouldn't say one piece, but within a few pieces. Yeah, so there you go, Patty. Like, that's kind of a thing. Like, it stayed on there. Like you said, it's still in good condition. So it's been on there 10 years. A thing with a motorcycle, you're going to park them inside a building. They're not going to be sitting outside. So they're not exposed to the elements like it would something parked in direct sunlight. Yeah, vinyl eraser. That's what I was saying earlier, Mike, when you're going, it's like that wheel which you put on a grinder and it spins, and it's literally an eraser. That's pretty much the only way to remove it when something's been on that long, because it's coming off in little pieces and cracking. So it's not fun at all to get that stuff off. B and Pam says, so Mike, Mike will print your car wrap and mail it to you. I appreciate it. Approached about doing a food truck. He could, Pam. I would definitely and then Mike says, yeah, I can. Main cost / issue is installation. We'll travel for install also, Mike says. Yeah, I was going to say that's the other thing too. Like the other thing too, a good example is I don't know if Frankie's on here. Depending on how the food truck's being installed, Pam, like he said too, he's got friends that installs in the other area, so you might be able to use an installer. But like some places, what they'll do is on food trucks is they're gonna only do like in the back. Some people go full wraps on trucks. Some people just go in the back section, so they're only throwing more or less a sticker on that one area. So I would see what they're wanting, Pam. A good clean clay bar when necessary. Done an entire food truck. Takes quite some time. Mike says, now I'm going to have to binge watch all your videos to learn how it's done. The good thing, Mike, from NovaWorks is that food trucks are a lot of it's flat, so you just got to worry about the rivets. The downside, though, it's still big because like we did some semi trailers, and I'd rather do semi trailers than some car wraps, just because semi trailers we just drop it. I mean, we had to set scaffolding up, but it's a little bit easier as far. I mean, it still took forever, but yeah, one of the last ones that I remember watching, which I know he's done 1 or 2 cents, guys. Mike did do. Was it a Corvette, Mike? You did a race car recently. I want to say it was a Corvette during the summer. You did it, but you did one other car since then too. I have 2 vehicles here right now. I just finished up. And then another thing, guys, if you go watch Mike's unloading video, where his friends got the OSHA safe steel-toed sandals on. If you look, you can see Mike's box truck, or not box truck, but box van that he's got out there. It's wrapped also. So when they're unloading, if you look, it's to the right of the back of the truck. He's got a truck or a van that he's wrapped right there. It's like a partial wrap. The sides are wrapped on it, if I'm not mistaken. Is that one of your full-time vans, Mike, that you take when you're doing like the floor installations? Yeah, it's an E350, guys. So, yes, he's got the sides wrapped. So that's one of the other things, Patty, where I was saying like that's something like where you do a side wrap. You wouldn't wrap the back necessarily. Every one of them vans I see, though, Mike, I want to put free candy on the side. So there you guys go. Mike will rewrap it if you buy it. He will put your logo on the side if you buy the van from Mike. They are working on the design. We'll definitely hit him up, Pam, because like he can help you out. Because like, and then depending on what you need on there too, Pam. Like I said, if they don't need something really big, you could do like just the go with the sticker on there. I don't know if they're wanting to go full wrap or partial wrap or just the logo. A lot of them around me, they normally do the full vehicle wrap. But we do have some where they only literally did the sticker next to the window, the food serving window. And then we had some of them do the oh wow, that's pretty cool, Mike, that rotary attachment. I just noticed that. But there are some that go There are some that do the, like I said, just the partial. Some do the full. United Federation, the nerd says it became a big business here wrapping cars. And I've been thinking about jumping into it because I'm a detailer. I'm not making much money with the comic book shop at the moment. Yeah, you guys are still technically on a lockdown kind of on some of it. He is in Niagara, Ontario, so near the falls. So there you go, Nova Works. Now you can go see Niagara Falls on a visit to teach him how to wrap. Wiki, wiki, wiki. Yeah, there is good money. Federation nerds in it. You just got to. It's a lot of. It does take time. Like I said, we don't do much at my shop. It seems like there's other shops around me that just do wraps all the time. The ones that we end up wrapping, like I said, are the companies that we do business with, where it's kind of. He's on the other side of the river, Mike, or the lake, whatever you want to call it. It's Niagara Falls. So he's on the Canadian side. But like I said, we end up just like I said, if we get a big order in for something like, or someone wants it and it's like a new customer, if it's something exotic, like we have done Lamborghinis and all that, we normally call this other guy and we just pay him a fee and he wraps it with whatever we design for it. It's a lot easier for me just because some of that stuff, like depending on what you're wrapping, you got to know how to take it apart. Got to go. Husband is home and wanting to watch the football game. I'll watch later in the week. Bye, y'all. Nice having you, Marnie. Great to have you on here. But yeah, that's the other thing too. Like some things that, like I said, knowing how you got to disassemble it. Because there's a few different ways you can do the kind of a very cheap wrap where you're not taking parts off, or you can disassemble a whole vehicle and wrap it correct. And I don't mean like motor and all that, but that you do have two different ways to wrap: a cheap way and the correct way. It's a catering truck, so they'll probably want the doors back and a large logo on each side of the truck. Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what I brought up earlier, Mike, was a 3M class, because that's what I went through back in the day. Like 3M guys, they have some great vinyl. It is some of the more pricey vinyl, but when you start getting into some of the vinyls, they're all going to be the same. And then you'll find too, like even like when you start getting into like a lot of exotic vinyls. Yeah. Also search Oriflow vehicle wrap training. Like when you get into like the color shifts or the pearls and all that stuff is through the roof, crazy expensive. And so like you don't want to scrap that. It's not like printing another side panel or something. When you scrap some of that vinyl, it can be pretty pricey. He says, "Thanks, Mike. I would have never thought of looking into training classes for it. I'm that kind of guy. Just jump into business and learn on the fly." Yeah, the other thing, Federation Nerds, is like some of them too, when you complete some of their classes, depending what level of the class you go to, they'll put you on their list as a preferred wrapper, or like NovaWorks. Some of the stuff these companies have used as art or their wraps in their catalogs, and they'll send them to the show, like the one in Vegas and all that. But it's like he said too, it gives you a big jump start because there's so many things like learning how vinyl stretches and learning how to, like going over a corner where it has a double edge and then you're tucking it underneath, learning how to release or relax the vinyl. Because what happens if you don't do it good? What happens? You'll see so many vehicles in certain areas, like bumpers and all that, where you've got the compound wraps, it starts lifting and peeling because they didn't relax the vinyl enough, or they overstretched the vinyl. And so it held that time, but then it starts either getting an air pocket, where a good example, when you go inside the curve here after you stretched, and let's say you wrapped here, getting it to press back into here, because now you're trying to get it to press. Well, it's tensions to come up and over. And it will look fine right away, but then what will happen over time, this is going to release in the corner, and then it's gonna have a little air pocket or lift, or it's just not gonna adhere good. And so making sure like you learn a little techniques on how to relax it before it's pressed in and then reheat it will definitely save you a ton of headache and a ton of problems. But it's stuff like that, like in the classes, they go over all that stuff, teaching all the little techniques. The little stuff, like a good example, like in Mike's video he did in was it last week? He was wrapping something. You got little magnets that hold your vinyl onto the vehicle, so you line it up. If you just started and you never knew that they existed, some people will literally like tape the vinyl up. You can do that. The magnets are so much better and they work great. And it's something you see that stuff in class. Or if you watch something like Mike's video, you'll see that and understand that, hey, the magnets, what they do. Yeah, and like Mike just said too, like I brought up also, if you go through their classes, they do have certification training also. And so like you're on their list. So like when someone calls 3M and says, hey, I need an installer, you can be one of the list people. And like I said, it does take some practice. So it's not like you're not going to go and on a weekend class and learn to wrap like an exotic car. But you can learn, like I said, the best thing is like go through one of the classes because it gives you that much of a head start. But wrap your own stuff, like literally look at your stuff, cut deals on your friends when you're first starting out. Like don't give it away for free, but do it so that you're still making money. But yeah, new cars suck. The aluminum panel. Yeah, like all the Fords. Yeah, you're not sticking them magnets on them Fords at all. I didn't think about that, Mike. So in about 2 years, Mike, them magnets are going to be obsolete then, aren't they? Yeah, and like I said, that was another thing right there that where I was bringing up the magnets, pushing them, I totally forgot too. Like vehicles are aluminum panels now, like on Fords, the pickup trucks. So them magnets aren't going to stick at all. So on them, you're going back to your tape method. But like I said, and then you can learn from YouTube videos. Like 3M has a lot of videos online, but you're not going to learn as good as going there and having them work with them firsthand, because like they got so many techniques and all that they do to help you, or work alongside of somebody. Like when you've watched someone that rap all the time, it's amazing the quality compared to just learning. I'm trying to think of the person I watch. Literally, like they do motorcycle helmets and you don't see the seam, which you can take and literally over a trash can, heat up the vinyl and literally press an object in it. So like this was a trash can. I've got my vinyl sitting over top and it's heated. I can literally put my hand in there and wrap my whole hand, but you're still going to have to go in and blend it a little bit. And granted, you're not doing that all the time on helmet. It's just, you can heat things and just almost like it's a vacuum forming it, but you still got to work this stuff. And the other thing too is it's better to have people help you too. Like when you're wrapping complicated things and you're heating it, stretching it, shrinking it, people help a lot when you're doing that. It's night and day difference. Could join this site. Some decent tips and tricks as well. The site didn't pop up there, Mike. I don't know why, but yeah, United Federation of Nerds. Check that out. Like I said, if you're something you're interested, because there's a lot of good groups online, and there's good money in it. The hardest thing is kind of getting your foot in the door, but like where you do detailing, you've already dealing with people in their vehicles. Yeah, Rap Institute. Yeah, let me cut it off. For some reason, it didn't post. Let me do this, guys. Hey, Oscar, how's it going? There you go, United Federation Nerds. That's another one to check out. That Mike just sent. They've got some good stuff too. And like I said, if it's something you're interested in, I mean, there's definitely potential to make money. There are people that literally make millions doing just wraps. Let me see if I have them on here. I follow some on my Instagram, and literally that's all they do is wrap vehicles. Lily posted a photo on Instagram. I'm trying to find. I have a friend that only does install sign wraps, and anything like that makes 500 a day on average. Yeah, they make some of these guys like I watched this one car show, and literally he's got a McLaren like where they're drag racing them, and literally they ask him how he made his money, and all he does is wrap vehicles. I mean, there is a lot of good money in it. Like Mike was saying, Mike did over 140 last year on installs only. So there you go, Federation of Nerds. Kind of gives you an idea of the numbers that are there and the potential that's there. And that's install only, like he was saying on the other thing. Like he said, the big thing is to go through like the referral classes and all that, because when you do that, then they'll start contacting you. And like I said, they'll pretty much help you out and get you, like once you're done and you're certified and you're good at doing what you're doing. Mike, I think we need to talk sometime. And the good thing, you both got the same name, so you won't forget it. Yeah, Mike says I'm too old just to do installs. Yeah, that's the other thing too. There's a lot of bending over because they don't lift cars up at eye level, so there's a lot of laying on the ground and uncomfortable. I've seen a lot of car detailers get into window tinting. Yeah, that's another thing you can do too. Window tinting makes good money, and if you've got the plotters already, then you're good to go. There's not as much to do. But that's another thing they get into also too, like Pinpoint Graphics says. So you can actually do the detailing and then offer the tint job also. Like, what do you normally get Nova Works for doing window tints on cars? because I'm sure I know he does them. So because that's like the other thing too. If you're doing the detailing and they don't have the windows tinted, there's some good potential money there. I know in Goon Life's video, guys, he has one where, because he did the signs for the tints, they have it in there. Mike says, I don't offer tints, I refer it out. I have a good friend that has tinted for me for 25 years. Well, see, there you go. United Federation of Nerds, the other Mike, because look, that guy's been doing it for 25 years, and Mike subs him out. So there's definitely money because he's been in it for 25 years and still going strong. Is there any other questions, guys? Because I think I'm going to call it a night. We've been on a little over 2.5 hours. So if there's any questions anyone has, shoot me the questions and we'll try to get them answered real quick. If not, we're going to hop off here. He doesn't tint near as much these days. I'd say maybe 10% of his business. He does a lot more PPF and some color changing wraps. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. Ceramic coating vehicles. There's really good money in that too, doing the ceramic on it, on the cars, which it comes into the detailing also. But there's a lot of money. When you get a lot of money in some of these cars, that you can make some money doing the ceramic coating, and or like he was saying too, like the color shifts. I mean, when you do color shift wraps, I mean that's pretty pricey. Yeah, or the paint protection film is the other thing too, like he was saying. So I mean, there's definitely money in these other options. So that's something to check out too. United Federation of Nerds is the PPF. So you're still wrapping it. It's just paint protective film, and so it's a clear, but it protects the paint. And like I said, and then they're doing the wrap there, so it's got the colored shift. And but thanks everyone for stopping in. I hope everyone has a great new year. Hopefully everyone their Christmas was good and everything else went good. I want to open by next month. Yeah, they don't need, like on the PPF though, they don't really need as much per se training in it. A lot, I'd say simpler, Mike, to do the PPF. I've never messed with that. I know a lot of people do that where they say it's a lot easier. They're soaking the whole car, where you don't really soak a whole car when you're doing the wraps. What I would do, Federation of Nerds, is definitely try to find one of the classes in if you're something you want to do that quick. Because like I said, it's something that you'll want to definitely work into and it takes a little time to learn. But definitely look into that. That's another thing. The places where I was gonna get my material for my room build burned down today. That's no good, Texas Finest. What kind of material were you getting, Texas Finest? Are you talking like lumber or like, yeah, we had the bad way. We didn't have fires. We had a small tornado hit and high winds that came through today. We had some more of the damaged area get affected again. Thanks for the chat, Waldo. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Mike. It's great seeing you, Mike. Sorry I haven't been on as much lately. I have been watching all the stuff. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you for following. If you guys haven't already, hit the thumbs up button. I was going to pay my dad to buy it for me since he knows more than I do. Okay, guys, take it easy. Like Mike said, too, that cold front's coming through. So Texas is, yeah, thanks for the comment on the hat, Texas finest. It is going to get cold, guys. So be ready for the cold front. Thanks, everyone, for stopping in. Please like, subscribe, follow, hit the thumbs up if it helped. Hit the notification button so you get notified every time I go live or drop something new. Thanks, everyone, again. Tomorrow's going to be in the 30s. Yes, that's cold for Texas. But thanks, everyone, again. Waldo 2413, and I'm out.